This is Juneteenth commemoration. You know, it's a day for us to recognize that misinformation is not a good thing, but we're going to celebrate the good times and we're going to celebrate advancement. And African Americans are awesome, being celebrated today. Fitness is important, and so I'm so happy to be here with my colleague Joy Shepard in her district, celebrating a day when we're coming together for fitness, for commemoration. This is a great day in Council District 12. There you go. Thank you.
I am so happy to be out here this morning at Effect Fitness. They are a great fitness business in my community. It's great to be here this morning and just being out here without a mask and being able to get ready for the race for Juneteenth. And here we are at Effect Fitness. We're giving them a proclamation in terms of the celebration of Juneteenth and what it's all about, but also just again being out here and what they do.
Keep going though. Let me see your shoulders. I don't know what y'all came here to do, but everybody stop. Put your left hand behind your head. Right knee, let's go.
Well, we are here because we are celebrating 10 years of the existence of Jenny Drake Park. And I'm so proud to be here as council member who represented this district. Miss Jenny Drake, who the park is named after, lived next door. She would call my office almost every other day. If a leaf fell off a tree in this park, she would call. And she was always a great caretaker. And so it's a great story. Today, the proclamation, of course, is celebrating 10 years of this park. But it's also great that it is the Juneteenth celebration, because we're celebrating not only that enslaved African Americans were freed, finally, when they had already been freed 2 years ago, but it's also freeing up this community to have a wonderful, lovely, green space where they can come and commune with nature. So all of it comes together for the good.
The Atlanta City Council adopts legislation to anticipate and appropriate funds awarded to the city from the American Rescue Plan Act, a federal relief package approved by Congress and signed by President Joe Biden in March. The American Rescue Plan is one of the largest economic rescue packages in our nation's history, which included providing $1.9 trillion in relief for state and local governments and hard-hit industries and communities to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. The council approves legislation authorizing a 2-year contract with a 1-year renewal option in an amount not to exceed approximately $5.4 million for DeKalb Avenue safety improvements, including resurfacing, replacing damaged sidewalks, and installing new signage. The council greenlights an ordinance transferring $1 million from the city's fiscal year 2021 general fund to the Capital Finance Fund to pay for streetlight installation and improvements to increase the city's streetlight footprint with a focus on areas with high rates of traffic crashes and crime. The council approves an ordinance authorizing an encroachment agreement with the Black Music and Entertainment Walk of Fame to grant the right to install the Walk of Fame in the public right-of-way along Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. For more recently approved legislation, please visit our website, citycouncil.atlantagA.gov. This has been your Atlanta City Council Legislative Minute. Thanks for joining us for this edition of Stay at Home Connect. I'm Phyllis Jackson. Dr. Anthony Fauci is warning against the spread of a highly contagious, more severe form of the COVID-19 variant that was first detected in India.
In the UK, the Delta variant is the rapidly emerging as the dominant variant, greater than 60%. It is replacing the B117. The peak transmission in my conversations with and the data associated with the UK, when talking to their health authorities, the transmission is peaking in the younger group of 12 to 20-year-olds, namely that group that we're concerned about here, about making sure they get vaccinated. And as I mentioned before, there's poor protection after a single dose of either the mRNA or AZ vaccine.
During a White House briefing, Fauci said the Delta variant accounts for 6% of cases in the United States. Here in Georgia, there have been just under 20 cases reported. According to a White House task force report, Georgia ranks 45th for COVID vaccinations. Fauci says it's important for all Americans to get vaccinated. The White House has a goal of vaccinating 70% of the U.S. population by July 4th. The largest vaccination site in the Southeast closes its doors. Mercedes-Benz Stadium shut down its community vaccination center earlier this week. Over 300,000 vaccinations were administered at the center. Johnson & Johnson says it wants to extend the shelf life of its single-dose vaccine. The company is conducting stability testing. The current vaccine can live up to 3 months, longer if it's frozen.
Down there for a week, the members of the Atlanta City Council, on behalf of the citizens of the city of Atlanta, who hereby proclaim this day, May the 22nd, 2021, as Tom Murphy Day in our fair city. In witness thereof, we cause the seal of the city of Atlanta to be hereunto affixed. Congratulations.
We're here today to celebrate Tom Murphy and 40 years of his restaurant Murphy's in the heart of Virginia Highland. But that's unusual these days to have a business owner, locally owned, lives in the area for that period of time. And, you know, he serves a fantastic meal. It's a place people come for baby showers, for brunches, for weddings, and he's been tremendous in giving back to the community as well. I'm just so excited that Tom says that they're back to their pre-COVID business. People are out and about. He's making it a safe place to eat. I've been back here, and it's one of my favorite places, and I hope people will get out as they feel comfortable and back into their local restaurants.
This is a great occasion to be here today. Murphy's being here for over 40 years is significant in a lot of ways. It's not just a popular restaurant, but Tom Murphy, his wife, his family, they're intricate to the community, intricate to the fabric of Virginia Highlands. You know, you can't think of this area of town without thinking about Murphy's. The food is great, the people are great, the spirits are great. And he's contributed not only by having and maintaining this business for 40 years, but he has reached out to help the least of these. He's reached out to help many charities around the city of Atlanta over that 40-year period. Just think about the people who've worked here, the people who have matriculated through this restaurant. This is the crossroads of East Atlanta. And so he has been a principled, central figure in the Virginia Highlands community, and his restaurant has expanded that, has expanded, you know, what's in his heart to all of the rest of us.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. I just want to make sure we were unmuted. Good afternoon. This is Councilmember George Shepard, and I'm Chair of the Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee. And I would like to now formally call our meeting to order. I believe we have President Moore on the call with us. I'm here. Thank you. I thought I heard your voice. Ms. Lindo, would you go ahead and do a roll call of our other members of committee?
Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'm sorry, I was unmuted. I've just been unmuted. Yes, I will certainly do the roll call. We have Councilmember Dustin Hiller.
Here.
We have Councilmember Cleta Winslow. We have Councilmember Andrea O'Boone. We have Councilmember Amir Faruqi.
Here.
Councilmember Carla Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Michael Julian Bond. Mr. Bond. Councilmember Boone.
Present.
Councilmember Winslow. Madam Chair, we do have a quorum members of present. As you indicated, we do have Council President Felicia Moore also on the line.
All right, thank you so much. We will now go ahead. Ms. Lindo, can you go ahead and read the remote meeting statement, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. Good afternoon. Today's Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee meeting will be conducted remotely as advertised and in accordance with Georgia Code Section 50-14-1. The meeting will be conducted in conformance with Robert Rules of Order and the Rules of Council as authorized by the City Code. The public may access the meeting conference bridge toll-free by dialing 877-579-6743 and entering conference ID number 831-599-1256. This information was also provided on the Friday, June 25th, 2021 public meeting notice. The public may also view the meeting on Channel 26, the Council's homepage at citycouncil.atlantag.gov, Facebook and Twitter pages at ATL Council, and the Council's YouTube channel. All presentations are available on the Atlanta City Council website on the Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee presentations page. Today's meeting agenda was also published and made available on Friday, June 25th, 2020 via the city's website and 2021 via the city's website at atlantacity.ga.iqm2.com. In addition, the public is able to submit comments via voicemail at 404-330-6022 yesterday between the hours of 4 and 7 p.m. These comments will be played during the public comment portion of this meeting. All persons present on the remote council meeting conference bridge are requested to please mute your phones and speakers. Meeting participants wishing to speak must be acknowledged by the committee chair. Amendments, substitutes, and all presentation and informational documents have been distributed to committee members beforehand. Thank you all in advance for your cooperation.
Thank you, Ms. Lindo. We will now move to the adoption of the agenda. There is no changes to the agenda, so can I get a motion to approve?
This is Councilmember Winslow, motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
That's Mr. Bond, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. Ms. Lindo, there's been a motion and a second. We're ready for the vote.
A moment, Madam Chair. The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? Councilmember Boone? The vote is closed. That's 7 yeas, 0 nays. The meeting agenda has been adopted.
Thank you, Ms. Lindo. We'll now move for a motion to approve the minutes. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bond. Is there a second?
Second, Hillis.
Second by Mr. Hillis. We're ready for the vote, Ms. Lindo.
The vote is open, Madam Chair.
Ms. Winslow, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you.
The vote's closed. At 7 yeas, 0 nays. The meeting minutes have been approved.
Thank you. We're now up under public comment. We only have 10 minutes and 25 seconds. If we're ready, Ms. Lindo, we're ready to get started with the public comments, and then we'll come back to communications.
Yes, Madam Chair. We'll play those comments momentarily.
Greetings, council members and staff, and special greetings to you citizens and voters of Atlanta monitoring our government in action between now and Tuesday, November 2nd. Dan Howard, Senior Advocate, Public Policy Analyst. The NPUR-9 continues to maintain control of Neighborhood Planning Unit R by ensuring that NPUR membership attendance hovers only between 20 and 30 of the 20,000 residents and stakeholders within NPUR, and by ensuring that no NPUR membership meeting occurs during the critical months of July and December. Not being notified along with other things slighted are those senior citizens who have gone to NPUR meetings and who have been denied the right to be placed on the NPUR agenda. Also not designated to be notified are residents of multifamily facilities along the Campbellton Cascade corridor and those in the disabled community and those citizens who have limited access to technology. Such exclusions deny residents and stakeholders the right to have a say in such matters as 1. Supporting the proposed legislation to have a camera at every gas station pump, a measure that is sorely needed in communities oppressed by criminals. 2. Coaxing those 8 council members to think outside of the box and instead of just voting down police-related legislation, latch on to that notion of trans funding so we can get the police out of homeless people control and domestic disturbance control so they can deal with carjackings at gunpoint. Let the NPUR people participate. Vice Chair Antonita Robinson, Corliss Clare, Ricardo Jacobs, Calvin White, Benito Scott, Allison Hathaway, Sherry Williams, Cheryl Brown, and NPUR-9 cohort supporters and the neighbors.
Hi, I'm Morris Harrison, and I witnessed a medical emergency event at the Regency High Hotel, and it was right after the street was, Peachtree Street was reduced to 2 lanes, and a fire truck was coming the wrong way because it couldn't come the correct way, and there were 2 ambulances that were coming, and they couldn't get through the traffic, and a police car was also trying to get there, and it was just total chaos. These emergency vehicles trying to get to the highest, with obviously a medical emergency going on, and it was, I don't know, quite possibly life in that situation, and all because we're putting in flowers and widening sidewalks, we have no room for regular cars or fire trucks or emergency vehicles. It's really seems to be ill-conceived, not well thought out, like Tinker Toy, playgrounds kind of stuff on a business street, commercial street. Very critical that it works efficiently, and unbelievable that this has been allowed to happen on our showcase street in the city of Atlanta. Thank you. Hope this helps you understand that this experiment is a total failure. It needs to be eliminated, terminated, reversed, thrown in the trash can. Thank you. Bye.
Yes, my name is Sonia Fraser. I did some work downtown, and while I was there on Friday, the 4 lane had been changed to 2 lanes, and I couldn't unload my materials that I needed to do a job with. because it was only 2 lanes and I couldn't block a whole lane of traffic, which really impeded me from doing a job that I should be able to do. Also, when I was there, a fire truck came and blocked all lanes of traffic because they couldn't go around, and it was very inconvenient. Thank you. Bye.
Matthew Peterson, Smart Streets Atlanta. Please provide the legislation for the Sheriff Street experiment on P Street between Baker and Ellis Street. It is a major life safety issue. Ladder trucks cannot get into service the commercial and hospitality area in too dense of a section to have the 4 lanes condensed to 2 lanes. Please provide the legislation and answers as to how this process was done, not going to committee or full council. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Martha McLeod. I'm going to make this short. We talk about crime. This is true. Everybody got crime all over the world, crime. But how can we have a solution? The solution is, number 1, we need a curfew for this zone. And number 2, we need probation officers. When you could have all the fancy building you want, and in there and you don't have another probation officer, it's over their head. It's just like the case with foster children. It's over their head. So that's where the money needs to be put in. Also, the probation office. That's why they can't go and check and see if the children update, are they doing what they're supposed to? Because you ain't got enough of them. And the Rescue Plan Act, that money should go for probation office, number 1. Code enforcement, that's just too much money. How you going? I'm not going to argue about that. Code enforcement gets the policemen. No wonder parole. That money should be in also with the police, not code enforcement. And that's where you're going to have problems. Seniors is upset. They can't fix their house unless you got money for them. So there's another worry you're doing, putting on the seniors and other people, because that is just too much money to waste. For me, it is. I know you want to keep the people clean, but your priority is not in the right way. I don't know who is working with you. I don't know city council. I don't know how you think that people are going to vote for y'all. And when you put money somewhere else more than you put it in the police, come on now. You got to do better than this. But yet you want the people to vote for you. I don't understand that. And these programs, make sure they have jobs, not on paper. We used to have a program, but Katrina Reed, I believe you one who cut it off in the summer because you privatized the food program. I remember the kids used to work in the schools, fixing boxes for the food. But you turn around, you privatize the program. So that cut some of the children's jobs, summer jobs. So please, let's work together and get Mr. Early. He works for North Metro with the high-risk children. And there's the juvenile is on that task force. And then we need to keep the juvenile center open. Do not close them. They don't need to go out of state, out of city, because we're going to need it. That's a
You know, the Spirit of our Lord Jesus Christ, my name is Marie Jordan. Clubhouse is a way to hell. Going down to the chambers of death, Proverbs 7, chapter 27, verse. The real intimacy and pleasure that God intended in the marital act is forfeited in the adulterous relationship. Jay Montgomery, you asked for chambers of death, and I seek to avoid this chamber of death. For ye are bought with a price. Therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God. 1 Corinthians 6, chapter 20th verse. Bought with a price. The blessed fact that our body is the temple of the Holy Spirit has 2 sides. One, that He is ours. The other, we are healed. It is that I can work for the city because of their unjust practices. I have to be an independent contractor. All scripture is given by inspiration of God and is possible for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instructions in righteousness. 2 Timothy 3rd chapter 16 verse. For instruction in righteousness means to tell one how to live. Jesus said, you refuse to give him glory for the income created by his word, to put the income in my hand to practice justice. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Exodus 20 chapter 12 verse. If you desire to live long, honor your father and mother. Honor means high respect, great esteem. We want Christ's righteous word to live in us, to love one another. We don't have love without obeying Jesus Christ, his word, his will to cleanse us up. Thank you and obey Jesus.
That concludes the public comments, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We will now go to our communications. I believe we have two held papers where we have the folks before us today, item number 22 and number 23. Ms. Linda, would you sound the first item, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. This is Communication 21C0076. This is a communication from Jill Dalachovic, Executive Director of the National Association of Licensing and Compliance Professionals, appointing Mr. Michael Sard to serve as a member of the Alcohol Technical Advisory Group, ATAC 3. And believe Mr. Sard is on the line, Madam Chair.
I am.
Mr. Sard, thank you for coming today. Please introduce yourself and tell us why you would like to serve. Thank you.
Nice to be with you all today. Thank you, Chairman Shepard. So I have been practicing law in the alcoholic beverage space since 1992. I was a participant in ATAG 1, a member of ATAG 2, and look for, and as a lot of you know, I guess I've communicated with each of the members of this committee over the years in various alcoholic beverage legal law matters. I think it's important to the National Association of Licensing and Compliance Professionals to be involved in alcohol legislation here in Atlanta. The organization has, if I recall correctly, more than 90 member businesses in the city. As a citizen, I love Atlanta. I live here. I've raised a family here. I work here. I play here. And I like to volunteer where I can to offer expertise. So I think this is a good match for my skill set and look forward to serving.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sard. Thank you, Mr. Vaughn. Mr. Vaughn, thank you. Mr. Hillis, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sard. We're ready for the vote, Ms. Lindo.
The vote is open, Madam Chair. Will everyone please vote? Councilmember Winslow?
In favor.
The vote is closed at 7 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Sard. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Our next item, number 23, would you sound that, Ms. Lindo?
Yes, Madam Chair. That's 21C0077. This is a communication from Chris Swasting, President of the Georgia Distillers Association, appointing Mr. Jim Chasteen to serve as a member of the Alcohol Technical Advisory, ATAC 3. Mr. Chasteen is on the line. Yes.
Mr. Chasteen, please come forward and introduce yourself.
Hello. Thanks for having me. My name is Jim Chasteen. I am the former president of the Georgia Distillers Association and now the serving vice president of our organization. We have had, I have been one of the owners of ASW Distillery, which is, we have a manufacturing facility and tasting room in the Armour Yards neighborhood, and we opened a second facility, thanks in no small part to Councilwoman Winslow in the West End neighborhood for barrel storage, and it also has another tasting room. I am excited to serve and be involved, and also a resident of Atlanta, and look forward to just doing my part and helping to responsibly guide the alcohol service industry in our city, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Chastain. All right, Mr. Bond, motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second by Winslow.
Second by Winslow. We're ready for the vote. Ms. Lindo.
The vote is open, Madam Chair. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Chastain. I've been to your spot over on White Street. It's a great spot. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great one. We're now going to move to presentations. We have the Atlanta Police Department, and I believe we have Deputy Chief Schiffbaum here with us today. Schiffbaum. Wow, I can always mess up your name. Please come forward.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Shepard. You can stick with Darren. That's much easier, so I'll leave you that. Good afternoon, everyone. Council President Moore, members of the Public Safety Committee. Darren Sherram, Deputy Chief for Strategy and Special Projects for the Atlanta Police Department, presenting today on behalf of Chief Bryant. I want to start with giving an oversight, if we can go to slide number 2, please, an oversight of our current crime trends in the city, as well as the efforts that are underway to sustain those that are in a positive state and to impact those that are in a negative state. What you see here is our COBRA report for the period ending June 19th. I want to attract your attention to the one of the center columns, the 28-day trend. This is comparing the most recent 28 days to the immediate 4 weeks prior to that to give us an 8-week trend of where the crime is occurring. If you'll note, we've had a drop in the 4 categories that comprise our violent crime: murder, rape, robbery, and aggravated assault. We're pleased to see that, particularly in the summer months when we have a traditional increase of that. We know we're early into the summer plan and efforts, but this is a positive sign as we begin our initiatives comprised on the summer plan. A few of the areas that we can point to as successes that have contributed to those drops is our focus on clubs and bars. We know that that is an environmental area that this year and the latter part of last year has driven a number of our violent crime occurrences in the city. We've began deploying administrative personnel from the department out into the street as part of our summer plan, focusing our crime suppression units, as well as being joined by the Georgia State Patrol in those areas. We've increased our enforcement around illegal vending, illegal parking, and general enforcement of that area. That has shrunk the number of people around there that may be hanging about, that allows for disputes and to occur where gunplay may be involved. That particular detail last weekend in the Buckhead neighborhood actually resulted in the arrest of an individual who's wanted on a homicide warrant out of DeKalb County. We continue to increase our license permits details throughout the weekend. And also last week, we assigned an additional 4 investigators to our license and permits unit to be able to sustain a more focused undercover operation, as well as inspection details. I also want to bring to thank Deputy Solicitor Erica Smith from the City Solicitor's Office. Her office has been working hard to address areas that we can define as being nuisance properties and obtain abatement orders from the Municipal Court. Last week, June 23rd, the Municipal Court issued an abatement order for 62 Harwell Street, which is the Darren Apartments over in the Zone 1 area. This particular property has been driving a number of our violent crime occurrences this year for a very small geographic area. And we want to thank the Solicitor's Office for their work bringing together community members, officers from our morning watch, zone commanders, to be able to argue those cases, but particularly the citizens who come and sit for many hours in court to be able to testify on the impact of these locations against their neighborhoods. That's much appreciated. We also continue to focus on the individuals, the people that we know are driving our violent crime. Operation Phoenix, which is our collaboration with our federal partners, has now been extended to include the DEA, the ATF, and is now moving into the surrounding counties around Fulton. That is beneficial, as we know. Our perpetrators of violent crime will move across county lines. They recognize those. So the expansion of Operation Phoenix to those areas, we believe we'll see a positive impact as we move into the summer. We currently have had 28 individuals that were recommended for federal prosecution by the Atlanta Police Department just through Operation Phoenix have been adopted for federal prosecution. We want that goes to the credit of our investigators across many different units that have identified those cases and have bring them to federal courts for their review. Of our top 10 wanted since we started that in January, 16 have been apprehended. Again, the vast majority of those go to citizens taking the time to call Crime Stoppers and provide information when they see them on the top 10 wanted list. The focus on recovering of guns continues to be an effort of the police department. To date, we have recovered 1,339 guns. Those are recovered through search warrants, traffic stops, arrests, in areas that we know violent crime is occurring. If you take the violent crime map, you overlay it with our gun recovery map, you will see a strong correlation of our proactive enforcement efforts removing guns in areas that are historically generating violent crime. We also want to note our efforts to use our K9 units in this initiative. Our K9 K9s are being deployed in areas where we know guns are stashed to protect drug trade, where guns may have been stashed following another violent crime, and they contribute to that as well. And I will go a little bit further into our illegal narcotics efforts in a later slide as being one of the efforts we believe has contributed to the 7% trend over the last 8 weeks in the violent crime areas. If we go to slide 3, please. The department remains highly concerned and equally engaged around the areas of homicides that we were seeing in the city. Year to date, we're struggling with, at the point of this report, 65 against 46 from the previous year. Go to the next slide, slide 3. This gives a breakdown of the zones of where our homicides are occurring in the city. I mentioned earlier that part of our efforts to curtail violent crime is related to the individuals that have a propensity for violent crime or engaged in criminal activity that we know that if left unabated will lead to violent crime, especially with firearm. That is around our gang investigations. This past week, the district attorney's office announced a 92-count indictment against 7 individuals who we believe and are alleging are affiliated with the Crips gang that we believe were operating in the Old Fourth Ward neighborhood and the Thomas neighborhood of the city. The Old Fourth Ward has seen a sustained number of violent crimes occurring in that area. We're very confident that this indictment focused against the Roland 60s gang will assist in reducing crime in that area. Those 7 individuals we believe are engaged in activity that has led to past acts of violence in that area, and absent their arrest would lead to other acts of violence within the Thomasville and Old Fourth Ward communities. In each of these areas, we're assessing where geography, places, maybe leading crime. We're also looking at narcotics in the area and gang affiliation. Challenging for us is that the number one occurrence of homicides, those escalating disputes that start over. We've had someone that was upset that a certain DJ wouldn't play music. We've had fights inside of rideshare services. We've had fights over various type of disagreements that have led to guns being introduced. And so it is very challenging for us to craft strategies around those. We are working very closely with those entities, faith-based communities, pure violence that do have that ability to ensure we're equipping them with the data and the information they need to be more effective. So far this year, our homicide unit has a 75% clear-up rate around homicides that have occurred this year. That is over the 61% national average of homicide clear-up. So commending the work of our homicide investigators as well as our criminal investigations team that work in those areas. We're very optimistic and believe that our centralization of our criminal investigations throughout the department will also continue to increase those clearance rates. We could go to slide number 5, please. Wanted to note 2 things that we believe have contributed to the reduction in auto thefts throughout the city. One in particular, we were seeing a sustained pattern of vehicles being taken off the highway. They would break down, individual would be making their arrangements to have their vehicle brought in for repair. When they come back, that vehicle would be missing. We had 37 of those that we could attach what we believe to be the same group that was committing those acts. 13 occurred within the past 4 weeks. Thanks to our auto crimes unit, they were able to establish a location in the city of South Fulton, which we believe that operation was being conducted out of. We worked very closely with the South Fulton Police Department. We were able to execute search warrants when we found 4 stolen vehicles at that location. 2 had been taken so recently the owner had not yet noted that they were being stolen. We also found 2 engines at that location, leading us to know what we suspected that was being operated as a chop shop in that area. We are currently focusing on that, believing we can probably link that to a wider organization to be able to curtail the organized auto thefts occurring in the city. Also, we were able to deconstruct, and this one is always very disturbing when we have a group of juveniles, but a group of juveniles attached to a local gang, ages 14, 15, and then 2 others, each at the age of 16. We linked then to 11 stolen vehicles, the vast majority of them occurring in the Midtown area. They have been arrested. 3 of them currently remain detained, and we're continuing to look into that investigation, which we believe they were likely being deployed by adults to engage in that criminal activity within the city. We go to slide number 6, please. Mentioned earlier that focusing on the factors that we believe can lower violent crime, individuals, places, and also narcotics. Our narcotics efforts this year have grown significantly over last year when all those resources were deployed to handle protest activity. We've had a 75% increase in our narcotics warrants that have occurred in the city over last year. That is done by our Apex unit, which is focused on narcotics and violent crime interdiction. That unit alone has recovered 172 firearms this year. If you'll notice on the slide we have here, this was a warrant that was served on June 23rd on Macedonia Road. And we have a picture of a couple firearms on that slide. That pistol that you see was actually taken from a vehicle that was broken into in the Buckhead neighborhood of our city. Year to date, we have had 902 firearms stolen from motor vehicles. It is very common for us to recover those vehicles inside of narcotics dealing operations. Either those individuals were engaging in the joint trade of breaking the vehicles and narcotic sales, or individuals are taking firearms that they sell and they're swapping them for narcotics. Again, our public affairs unit is working to push out information to educate individuals not to leave firearms and their weapons. We push that on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. If any council members can help us in pushing that back out to your constituents to educate around leaving firearms in their vehicles, it would be much appreciated. And then another warrant I want to mention was one we executed on June 10th on Godfrey Drive Northwest. During the execution of that warrant, we recovered 7 firearms, one of which had modified to be an automatic weapon, and 2 50-round drum magazines that allowed the individual, without reloading, to immediately unleash 50 rounds from that weapon. You will see in various news reports from this agency, we do respond to scenes where 30, 40 rounds have been fired and recovered. It goes back to show the connection of the narcotics trade and the violent crime that's occurring in the city. So our Apex unit, in conjunction with our zone level crime suppression units, have been responsible this year for the execution of a number of warrants, the seizure of another gun that had that warrant not been executed, we would have seen those weapons used to either defend the drug trade, expand the drug trade, or to retaliate in a certain matter. So those warrants cannot go be unstated at their role of reducing violent crime and contributing to the decrease we've seen here at the beginning of the summer. Just a couple other things, and we'll open the ground for questions. We did have the release of F9, which was the continuation of the Fast and Furious franchise this weekend, which glorifies street racing. We were in that space working with our partners at the neighboring jurisdictions and the Georgia State Patrol. This weekend, we effectuated 127 traffic stops, issued 176 citations, made 10 physical arrests, and impounded 10 vehicles. We try to get into those spaces before the street racing gets started or to quickly impact them. And we will continue to do that, as well as joining with our partners to combat the dirt bikes and the ATVs, which will come out on the weekends as well. Madam Chairperson, that is my report from the police department. If you have any questions on that report or any others I could answer, would be more than happy to.
Let me open it up to my colleagues first. Questions? Are there any? Let's see, I think I do have one.
I have a question, Madam Chair.
Okay, I'll let you go, and then we'll have Mr. Faroki right after that. Go ahead, Ms. Winslow.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
No, go ahead, Ms. Winslow. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I thought I was asking Mr. Faroki. Okay. So you talked about the gang problem.
She said something
Wait.
this morning.
You talked about
my Atlanta Police Department about.
Hold on, Miss Harvey.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You talked about the gang situation, and when I was president of the Atlanta region through the Georgia Municipal Association back in 2012, there were council people who were talking to me back then, and they were up in Cobb County and in Gwinnett, and so they were talking to me about gangs, that they had about 50 youth gangs in their area back then, and they were talking to churches and trying to figure out how to, work with the situation. So I heard you say something about task force. So this is a metro-wide task force?
That's correct, Councilmember Winslow. The Operation Phoenix is a collaboration with our federal partners to identify individuals for federal prosecution. We also have a partnership with the District Attorney's Office and also the surrounding jurisdiction to be able to combat gangs as well, which led to the RICO indictments I referenced that occurred last week.
Ms. Winslow? Okay, yes. Okay, so this is Metro. Okay, so I guess my question is, and I don't know what the penalties are for this, in terms of these gangs, but it appears as though, so the Bloods and Crips are, and I'm, like I said before, I'm from the Midwest, so I'm familiar with the Bloods, the Crips, the Disciples, just a bunch. The vice lords, okay, they were held, excuse me for using that word, but they were held back in the day. So are these people coming down from these areas that are recruiting, or have you been able to assess that?
So, Councilman Winslow, the composition of our gangs will vary depending on the neighborhoods they're in, their relationships. Some are homegrown, others have influences outside the city. That's why our partnership is with the federal government to be able to leverage prosecution and law enforcement resources when the influences are outside of Georgia. And our collaboration with the state and the region is to be able to impact equally those that may be more homegrown in nature. In addition to, I always want to mention this, we would much rather prevent gang crime instead of prosecute gang crime. Our at-promise centers, we have 2 online now. We hope to have a 3rd one on this year, and the PAL centers are working aggressively combating gangs with footballs and basketballs and tutoring and interest in those areas. So it's just not with handcuffs and indictments. We're working aggressively in those youth engagement areas to be able to break up the pipeline recruitment in the gangs.
Oh, okay. So, and I don't know how many questions I want to ask, because I don't want a whole lot of information to get out. But we still have the gang task force unit, right? With the city, right? With the police, right?
That's our criminal intelligence unit, ma'am. Yes.
Okay, that's what it's called now. Okay, it's called something else. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, thank you for the work that you're doing, and we appreciate it very much. Okay. Okay.
You're
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Next, we have Mr. Faroki, and right after him will be Mr. Hiller.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Deputy Chief Sherbaum, for the report and the data. It's always important to look to the numbers, and we appreciate, I think, that being the starting point for much of the conversation. I want to have 3 topics of questions. I'll be efficient and quick as I can. The first is on the homicides. One is specific to District 2, in fact, specific to my neighborhood, the Old Fork Ward, where there were 2 open-air, broad daylight homicides on Boulevard and a couple blocks from my house, which is neither here nor there. But the second one occurred a couple of days after the first. I'm told by the zone major that it was doubly frustrating because the Apex unit, the crime suppression unit, and the gang unit was all in the neighborhood at the time of this second open-air homicide. And I'm curious, it sounds like you all have a bead on some of the motives, or at least the network within which this crime is happening. But in a situation like that, what can y'all do? What are next steps with respect to, it's hard. If someone wants to kill someone, they're going to kill someone, right? And that's part of the problem. But I think in balancing allocation of resources and intelligence, how are we reacting to situations like that, whether in the Old Fourth Ward or any other part of town that are specific to gang violence or the drug trade?
Certainly. Given that homicides can fall into different areas, those that are related to narcotics, gang activities, escalating dispute, domestic, we are looking very closely at any homicide and also any aggravated assault where a firearm was used to determine, do we believe that there's a conflict at play between one group and another, and because of this action, do we anticipate a reaction to that? And it may be something that occurred outside the city that could have prompted a reaction inside the city. So we look very closely at that to know, do we need to be deploying additional resources into a certain neighborhood? Where should our Apex deploy? Should we be leveraging our relationships with community supervision for individuals we know to be in the area? So we try to be very wise with the information that we're gathering and try to gather it as quickly as possible to be able to move to deploy resources that we can to head that off if we believe there may be retaliation or it could be geography driven. We've also been working around those areas where early in the year we were seeing a high number of shootings and homicides around our club district. And that right now has abated because of tactics we've been able to put in place. So I can't speak in great detail about those two homicides on information that we may have, but we are always mindful that is this homicide in response to something else that occurred, and could this be raising the probability of a homicide or gun activity in one of our neighborhoods within the city or outside the city, and we pass that along to the appropriate jurisdiction.
Great, thank you. Appreciate the details and all the work you guys are doing on that. I know it's stressful and intense work, and the whole city relies on you all to do what you do, and we appreciate it. Two other quick topics. One is I continue to receive complaints about the response time with 911, and some more frustrating than others when their actual health at risk or it's not a noise complaint, it's someone bleeding out or something like that. And I wonder if you could give an update on where we are with improving 911 response times and why it continues to occur. I know there was a changeover in software, which was explained to us a month or so ago, but it seems like the delays continue. And I think we'd all like to see some certainty that will end soon.
Certainly. And if there's any specific occurrences, Councilmember Peroki, to send us, please do. That will help us in our own assessment. The implementation of the CAD, that had a temporary impact on the answering times. That has improved as the staff has become more acclimated to it. Because of the pay raises implemented through this body and the administration, we are seeing our recruitment numbers into the center increase. So once the training takes effect, we will have more individuals answering to address those where it's the backlog of those calls coming in or the processing of them. As it relates to the response, once the call has been dispatched, we work very hard monitoring the pendings, both at the supervisor level in the center and supervisors in the field. Our night commander watches that to shift resources to ensure our ability to keep officers in place to respond to high priority calls, to ensure that we're responding to those. And then any concerns related to fire or EMS, we'd be more than happy to facilitate that to the appropriate agency to address. But if you could send me any specifics you have, that would be helpful. We are also in the last phases of interviewing the permanent director of the E911 Center, and so we hope to have that individual named and in place in a very short period of time.
Great. And just to be clear, the complaints I'm receiving are not about APD or AFRD or Grady response times. It's actually getting an operator on the phone with 911, so being on hold for 5-10 minutes or having to leave a message at times. And we know they're high volume times, but this is something we got to solve because no one should have to wait very long when they call 911. So it's not the latter part of your response, it's the first part, but I will send you a couple examples that were sent to me. And then finally, I'll just note, and this is a much bigger issue and not as pressing given so much energy and resources being put into violent crime suppression. But specific to Midtown, there is, I think, been, I would say, 18 months of increasing noise. And that some of that's related to nightclubs and bars, some of it's related to the street activity. But my sense is that a lot of residents are at their breaking point. And there's not a question here. It's more of a comment that, most of the noise ordinance guidelines are in place and they're effective when enforced, but the challenge has largely been enforcement. And so I've had some passing conversations with the zone major in Zone 5. But my kind of analysis is that we're kind of at a breaking point for a lot of folks who choose to live in the center city and have to live alongside a robust nightlife that is probably a little bit louder than it should be. And look, cities across the world manage this all the time. We can manage it too. People live in Midtown because they want to be close to all these things, but there has to be a balance between livability and nightlife, and it's achievable. I worry we're allowing some of these things to fester in ways that will diminish the quality of life for folks and make it less attractive to live in Midtown. So I will be working on that, hopefully with anyone at APD you recommend in addition to the zone major. And so I guess my question to you is, on this question of noise, and I know there's a lot of sources of noise, some of which you just have to grin and bear it if you live in a city, some of which we do need better enforcement. Is there someone at APD I should be talking with other than the zone major on these types of issues?
So we've recently, as part of our centralization of CID, have placed our code enforcement as well as license permits under the Community Services Division Commander. And so we would certainly make her available to participate in any conversations to ensure that we're leveraging those resources, to ensure that the laws and ordinances we have on the book are being enforced in an equitable manner. I will tell you, as part of the summer plan, we are actually deploying administrative personnel out on the weekends to actually do a assessment of bars and clubs where we've had previous complaints, and also our extra job officers are assigned to attempt to be more proactive in addressing those. And so feel free to email me any particular complaints. We are using the 911 complaints and the feedback from zone commanders to be able to deploy those personnel, but that is an initiative of the summer plan to be more proactive in that space.
Great. Thank you very much, Deputy Chief. Madam, I appreciate your frankness and your detailed responses. Madam Chair, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Faroki. Mr. Hillis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Deputy Chief Sherbaum. My first couple questions are, I guess, around the summer plan. The first question is, there's some information that had been going around that APD had reduced overtime hours that they're going to be using due to budget issues, which doesn't make a lot of sense because we're about to go into a new budget year. And so maybe it was specific to the July 4th holiday time frame, or maybe the whole summer plan. But can you speak to, where we are with how have we cut back on overtime in the summer plan? And I know, there's a balance that we have to walk between, making sure our city is well policed and, giving our officers time off to spend with their families and working on morale. So is there why am I hearing this? And is there what's the lowdown on that?
Yes, good afternoon, Councilmember Hillis. No, sir, at this time, the summer plan for those initiatives that are occurring outside of the normal work week for the officer is being funded by overtime. The initiative I just spoke to is deploying administrative personnel to do inspections at businesses and assist with the extra job component. That is being funded by overtime. That is in my division. I have firsthand knowledge of that. The 3rd and 4th of July for those officers, because this year the Peachtree Road Race is 2 days. For those officers that will be working their off days, that will be overtime. There is an effort because of it being a 2-day to try to leverage resources to allow individuals to only have an 8-hour shift as opposed to 12 as their off day, or try to limit who would lose both off days. And so maybe that is where the belief grew, but we are still on 3rd and 4th, that is overtime. And then those components of the summer plan that are outside of 40-hour work week are still being funded by overtime.
So the short of it is there's been no cuts in overtime for the summer plan, right?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. Secondly, in the summer we see a lot more traffic in our parks. A park I've had issues with is English Park. There's been a number of drug busts in that park, or in nearby residences. There was this drive-by shooting last week at that park, and so not to spend time, talking about my particular issues, and we could talk about that online in my council district. But what is is there a plan specific around parks, in this summer, given the issues that we've seen, and the park expansions that are happening, and two that come to mind in my area, District 9 and District 3, both located in two very large new parks that are going to be coming online, and Rodney Cook Park and then Westside Park, and hopefully soon as well. So we're adding a lot more outdoor space and going to be attracting a lot more people to these areas. But our zones don't have the resources to provide a constant presence there, and to a point that's needed. So what if anything are we doing specifically around policing in our parks this summer?
Throughout the course of the summer, our Tactical Crime Analysis Unit is generating reports, providing the zone commanders their trending patterns of where crime is occurring, with the expectation that the resources will be shifted into those areas. So you just mentioned overtime a moment ago, the ability for zone commanders to craft details around overtime to be able to impact trends beyond their resource, their normal 40 hours is in place. Those are one of the initiatives we're using around the bars and clubs. Those are being deployed with overtime as well. So we're providing the zone commanders with the information they need to show them what you just described, that you're having an increase in this area. This is what we're seeing around these areas, to give them the flexibility to deploy the resources they have that need. And also our discretionary units will follow that information as well. So we have trends within our parks that is showing that is driving the crime in the neighborhood or in a particular council district. That information is available for them to craft their response.
Thanks. And as far as being proactive goes, just using my two examples, and there may be others in the city that are coming online, but with Rodney Cook Park down in District 3, Zone 1, and with Westside Park and District 9, my district, and Zone 1, have there already been discussions about how, that's, hundreds of more acres when you count those two parks, how those are going to be policed, and making sure we show a presence there so they don't get out of hand?
Yes, sir. We will be monitoring crime within our parks very closely. In addition to obviously the zone levels, we also have our task force. We have our cops units that are, as well as our mounted patrol that are deployed in support of the zone commanders when additional assistance is requested and our crime trends show us an increase of crime in those areas.
Understood. And one final question, and I've asked this before, I think last time was Chief Boyd. There was formerly, when we talk about all this crime data, and I'm kind of a data nerd, when we look at, there used to be a crime mapping tool available on Atlanta PD's website under the same area where the open data and the COBRA reports are, and that's been offline for, I think, most of this year, and I keep getting told it's coming back, but it still isn't there. So are you familiar with what I'm talking about? And two, do you have an update as to when that's going to be back online to be used by citizens to look at crime in their city and their neighborhoods?
Yes, sir. I'm familiar with that, and I know that's being asked for, and what we have in place doesn't map it for the geographic area, but just break it down by the neighborhood. Councilor just said we were hoping that was to be online in May. That was when the individuals working on it thought it would be recreated. As you know, we went to a new report management system. We now went to a new CAD. Once those are aligned and we have the proper coding done, then we hope to have it back up. So we didn't meet the time frame that we originally provided to you and others because that was optimistic and didn't take into account other factors. The moment that can be back online, it will be. And when I do have a time that we can give you definitively, we'll provide that to you right away.
All right, that's all I have. And thank you, Deputy Chief Sherbaum. Thank you, Chair Shepard.
Thank you, Mr. Hillis. Just to kind of piggyback off of what Mr. Hillis was talking about, Deputy Chief Sherbaum, the park thing, I know, we had talked about the legislation looking at putting people in the park, but right now we're really just deploying people from APD who are available to kind of go through the park. And because we're short, we don't have people who just patrol the parks individually. Is there something like that being contemplated if we ever get up to staff?
Obviously, as we grow the department back and add the officers up to our authorized strength, we will be looking at where those personnel are needed, be it parks, investigations, wherever we see a need for patrol or we need to see the introduction. That's where the resources will be going. Obviously, the zone commanders, as they patrol the beat officers, we will supplement them with other discretionary units as requested, and we will continue to do that. But the parks will be a priority for us throughout the summer, and especially if additional resources are made available.
Right. Okay, because I know in my parks, there's a couple of my parks that are having problems, and when they call, the residents call the zone officers, they basically said, we're just backed up unless there's an actual crime going on. But in terms of just patrolling the parks and driving through to make sure, in terms of that, we just don't have resources at this point to make that happen. Is that correct? Or you don't want to?
Well, we will always shift resources to where the need is. We will certainly assess this in our parks throughout the city, looking at the calls that we're getting from the parks as well as the police reports that are being made out of there, and shifting whatever resources into that area that we have to stem that or address the concerns.
All right. Well, Joyland Park is one of mine right now that we're having a lot of problems with. So just put that on y'all radar, Joyland Park. It's in Joyland, off of Langford Park in Joyland, in the Joyland neighborhood. So just put that on your radar.
We'll do
the other thing in terms of ATVs, years ago I did legislation to ask for ATVs, and I'm just going to ask your opinion on this. ATVs right now, it's not a no chase law in terms of chasing ATVs. So one of the things about ATVs is they don't have tags like other vehicles do. I'm really contemplating looking at that again, and I'm asking for y'all support as the police department, and I want to know your opinion of it. This is a state law that has to be changed, and I'm going to probably go ahead and introduce a resolution or something to go to the state, because ATVs is also part of the speeding across the city, and I'm just going to go ahead and introduce something. What are your thoughts on identification for ATVs? Would that be very helpful to you all?
Well, the ability to remove an individual, or removing an individual's ability to hide behind who they are, or who the vehicle belongs to. Obviously, we have a much better track record of countering activity with cars because we know who the vehicle belongs to, or the mere fact that you obscured the tag allows the officers to engage in some enforcement efforts. So I think we can learn from the ability to have registration on vehicles to be able to counter crime being conducted from cars would probably translate well to ATVs and dirt bikes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other questions from anyone else?
Madam Chair, I got one quick question. Councilmember Winslow. And I keep bringing this up, and people think I'm against the homeless. I am not against the homeless. But when folks start biting people's ears off, yeah, I got a problem. They start chasing children, yeah, I got a problem with that. So there was an incident in Evan P. Howell Park, and it was on the news, and so I was and then somebody told me about it. So the gentleman that was removed from being in the pavilion for the last year and he thought it was his home. So the police moved him, and I thank the police for that. So there was another gentleman that was sitting under the pavilion just enjoying the park. And so this individual that the police had not banned from the park, but that, you know, they took his things. I don't know what they did with him, but he wasn't in the park anymore. He came back because he thought the man was trying to take his house. So he bit the man's ear off, part of it. So my question is, and this is part of the APD Hope team, and so I'm going to call the officer for that. I just found out who that is. But we've got some severe, and it's not much you can do about it, Deputy Chief. I understand that, so I'm just kind of bawling in front of you, okay, and wiping my tears away. But is there any kind of way that these people can be put into a place? I'm not talking about jail, but are they taking any people at the Atlanta Regional Commission? I mean, I've got people that, when I say they're living in a box, they're in a box there day and night. I kicked the box, not thinking anybody was in there, and there are people in a box and they got it all covered up, and they're constantly in there. These are severe, and your people run across them every day, so I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Is there any place that they can be taken for treatment, for real help? Because these people aren't able to make it on their own. Is Atlanta Regional taking anybody? That's my question.
Councilor Winslow, we will have to look to see where our, so obviously our first effort is for a social referral, either through the Hope team, if a criminal offense is occurring through pre-arrest diversion. And in the case of the individual biting the other individual's ear, an arrest was made in that case, and that person has been arrested.
But how long does that, so let me ask you this, excuse me for interrupting you. How long does that person stay in jail? Because they're a danger to themselves and to everybody else. Now, you don't have anything to do with that, but they go to jail. How long do they stay there?
It varies, ma'am, depending on the circumstances surrounding the offense, the individual, the discretion of the judge. I can look and advise you later on today if that individual is still in jail.
Okay, but my only concern is that there are, and you know this, there are some homeless, they're a danger to themselves, and I'll finish, and they are a danger to other people. That's why they were, unfortunately, that's why they were in an institution. Okay? You know, we all know that. And so these folks are just kind of roaming around over here in West End. And that's not good. And I'm afraid somebody's going to get hurt. I don't feel like going to another press conference, offering another $5,000 to find somebody that killed somebody. I don't want to have to release any more balloons up for children that are dying, dead. I'm tired of that. I'm tired of it. And I'm not ragging on you. I'm just saying I think we're all frustrated. And unless these folks go before a judge where they are remanded to go get treatment, they have to go get treatment. They have to. And the only way you can do it with some of these people is, yes, they have to go to jail with the expectation of going before the homeless court judge, and that's Judge Portis, and then they're remanded by court order for treatment. And I'm done, but I'm just frustrated. And I don't know why I know why we can't do it. I get that. I don't want to say it publicly. But these people are a danger. And they have to, listen, the pad thing isn't working for some people. That pre-arrest ain't working for these folks. Somebody biting off somebody's ear, that's not working for these people. A homeless man chasing little 4- and 5-year-old children and scaring the bejesus out of them at a daycare, that's not working. That person could have really harmed those children, could have harmed some adults. I've worked in a mental institution. I've seen where a woman who was out of her mind, it took 3 grown big men to control her. And they had to wrestle with her for about 20 minutes. These people get some kind of strength from within because they are mentally ill. And I'm saying this to the administration. Please help us. Help them. Everybody just can't go through the revolving door. Some of them have to be court ordered. And yes, they need to go into the jail system so that they can be remanded to before a judge. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Winslow. I just like to say a few words behind that. You know, as a public safety chair, I have been sitting on so many committees now, just looking at things from one side to the other. And one of the things I have to say is, a lot of times here we are talking to the police department about this. And Chief Shibam, he knows they out there every day and we're locking them up. And if you want to talk to Judge Portis, and they're supposed to come before us in a few minutes, they actually have programs where they're doing the best they can with homeless folks, and they are trying to turn as many of them around as possible so that they are not in jail. And if you go over to Fulton County, because I've been over there and toured Fulton County, I don't know if you did, but when I went and toured Fulton County with Sheriff Labatt, and we went through the jail system, you know, you got homeless people who are locked up in jail. But one of the things that they even said over in Fulton County, and you talked about the Atlanta Regional Commission, place, and where you send them, they're so overcrowded because there's only one for the state of Georgia. Not just one for West End, Ms. Winslow, or my district, the state as a whole. They only have one regional place that they're sending ill people. So we don't have the capacity. We don't have the funding. Some of it is very political as to why we don't have the funding. So that's a whole nother, the politics of that is really interesting. Then you talk about the court system. In terms of the court system, you got people over at the municipal court here in Judge Portis, but also over at Fulton County Court, where I'm sitting in meetings where they're talking about homeless people and all the things that happen with them. I was at one, I think, little Five Pointers area downtown where they had this one homeless man that has been locked up so many times for mental illness, and they let him back out every time based on his, in terms of how his procedures and process in terms of locking him up and letting him out, but he's mentally ill. And every time he goes back to this certain bank right at 5 Points, goes in there and actually harass and actually physically assault women, hitting them, beating on them, and they have to lock them up over and over and over and over and over again. That's mental illness. But then when they put him in, they can only keep him for so long. Then they're supposed to send him off to another space, which is the state. And you can't, the state is so overcrowded that they're on the waiting list. So when we scream to the mayor's office, I'm just saying this, I'm on the soapbox tonight. It's not just the city of Atlanta. It's not the police department. We can actually put them in jail, but even in jail, we got to get mental services for them. This is Wilson County. Mental services and funding for all that stuff. It's not just the city of Atlanta. So when we're talking about all these things, we need to know where are the layers, where's the money? And then let's look at the assessment of all of these things and then ask the state. So a lot of times we scream and cry, but it's time for us to stop just talking about this and looking at in depth, where is the money? Who's blocking the money? What's going on with this? And why is it that we're continuing in this? I was just on a conference call last week with some folks in Texas, Houston, Texas, who are doing something different in terms of their pre-arrest diversion program. And they actually, the county out there, Harris County, is actually creating a program, funding from the state and the county to build out a program that's absolutely unbelievable in terms of pre-arrest diversion. We just started pre-arrest diversion, and we're trying to grow up and be like them. But the money is not all in the state. It is with county and the state. And I said, where did y'all get y'all money to build out this facility like that? What y'all were doing? County and the state. It was not the city. So I'm just saying, as we're talking about this, there's so many layers of what problems we have in terms of all these things. We talk about Reimagine, ACDC, and all these things. And we need to do some stuff, more comprehensive stuff like that. And also, Ms. Winslow, these guys, most of these men and women are so mentally ill. that keeping them off the street and trying to do something with them is hard. So this is a complicated, very complex problem. I'm just saying that to you. And I hear your frustration, I really do. But what I'm learning, the more I'm dealing with this, it's much, much deeper than what we said as a city that we can do, because this is so much deeper than that.
Right. No, and let me just say one thing, Madam Chair, and I get that. I mean, my background is in social work. I've done a lot of things over the years. This is a 40-year problem. So as they started releasing people from the Atlanta Regional Commission back in the 80s, okay, we had this problem. So it's been dumped on the city. And so when the state initially started putting people out, they gave money for group homes, okay? I was on one of those boards. There's a group home right around the corner from me. You don't know it's a group home because it blends into the community, but it's been there for 30 years. So the bigger problem is that the state has abdicated their responsibility, and I agree with you. They've abdicated it to the city, okay? So I'm not trying to yell at the mayor. I'm frustrated. But somehow the state has to understand that you just can't release your responsibilities to everybody else and it not affect the same taxpayer that we represent. We represent the state's taxpayer as well. So that's all I wanted to say. But I agree with you. My fear is that somebody's really going to get hurt, you see, or get killed, perhaps. And so that's my frustration.
Everything you're saying about Ms. Winslow, I have it in my district too. I have a park where
I know you do.
The kids out the park. I'm going over to the park with the police. They're running the kids out the park because they've taken over the pavilion because they said it's their home. So I understand everything you're saying, but it is so complicated. Well, let's get off the soapbox.
I'm sorry. Okay, let's go on. We got a little business to take care of. Other fish to fry. Thank you.
All right. Deputy Chief Sherrod, I thank you so much.
Madam Chair,
I'm sorry, Mr. Bond, you have a comment?
I have a question for the Deputy Chief.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Deputy Chief, for your very thorough presentation. And my first question is I wanted to get clarity on the number of guns that have been recovered by APD. I thought, as I was listening to your presentation, I think you quoted 2 separate numbers of guns that have been confiscated by the police.
Yes, so the guns recovered by the department is 1,339, and then the other number I quoted was guns stolen from vehicles, 902. But then I did point out our Apex unit. They alone had recovered 172 weapons.
Okay. My next question, I know that you've gone on social media trying to spread the word about about people leaving their weapons in their vehicles. Have there been any other PSAs over radio and vision, more traditional areas to try to reach people about this message?
At this present time, Councilmember Bond, it's been focused on social media and then our local television, certain stories carried by our local stations. So we will certainly raise with our public affairs team the ability of what other avenues we have to push that out beyond those 2 delivery points.
Yeah, I would ask you, urge you to do that, because when I was still operating my Jeep, my vehicle was broken into. I suspect at that time, that was probably back in 16, but I suspected they were vehicles because all of the vehicles in our parking lot, it might have been 18 that were broken into. People had left phones, all kinds of other valuables. Nothing was stolen. But at that time, the awareness that these young people were looking for guns, wasn't in the zeitgeist quite as it is now. So yeah, it's spreading that message, because this seems, like a natural outgrowth of the Clean Car Campaign. But then I guess the Clean Car Campaign's been around for 5 or 6 years, and people are still leaving valuables in their vehicles regardless. But pumping that message, I think would help. Then my next concern, I want to applaud you all for the progress that you have made so far on your summer campaign. But I am concerned, as has been mentioned today, about the gang activity that seems to be mushrooming in Atlanta over the last, well, my awareness, probably over the last 2 or 3 years. Can you just give us a little more about, I believe is it the Apex program or the Phoenix program that is focusing in on these gangs?
Yes, sir. The Phoenix program is our partnership with the federal government, the FBI, the ATF, the DEA, the U.S. Marshal Service, that allows us to take individuals that we believe are involved in gang activity, federal firearms violations, and elevate those to the federal court for prosecution. We also have an effort underway with our state and regional partners that also, for those that may not go for proceed to federal prosecution, rather, that we have the ability to prosecute them in state court. The case being the Rolling 60s were all indicted on state RICO charges. So we have a dual process. We do want to only be in the federal venue nor the state, so we have a broad prosecutory avenue to ensure that we're holding gang members accountable for their actions.
And I guess lastly, I want to commend you on your murder cleanup rate. I think it's always been good here in the city of Atlanta. But of course, full consolation is someone who's lost a loved one under senseless violence, but at least it gives them some closure. My family experienced the murder of my cousin in East Atlanta. It's still unresolved, not because of APD, but really because of the DeKalb County DA won't move on her case. But what is the message, or what resources do you need from the city council as you all move forward through the summer?
Well, Councilmember Bond, and we always want to thank the administration and this body for their support of the pay raises. I cannot overstate the impact that has had, even though we have, as law enforcement has across the nation, lost officers over this past year. Our attrition rate would be much greater had we not had those pay raises in place to retain the talent of the men and women of this department. So through your budgetary efforts, providing us technology, the retention through our officers, those have been vital for our efforts to continue to fight crime. Also funding the overtime that was mentioned earlier. That is vital why we're short on officers to continue to deploy investigatory as well as correct crime fighting measures. Right now, we have the tools that we need. We hope to see equal engagement from our partners, and we're receiving that, and the communities being able to assist us in providing information they have, providing camera footage. Those continue to be vital to our investigations, and continuing to encourage cooperation from your constituents with any police investigation is important to our effort.
Well, we want to make sure that we're doing what we can to keep the morale and the visual, physical, spiritual support around our officers, as they do their daily jobs and as they take on this extra mission. But one last thing, I mentioned this earlier when the conversation was around the parks. We said it, as a policy through resolution, that we wanted to see if there were any, if we could use some of our officers to come back out of retirement to do some patrols in the park. Has there been any progress? I know that APD in the parks are supposed to come back in 30 days. I'm not quite sure if it's been 30 days, but has there been any progress on that effort to try to use some of our recaptured officers in that capacity?
Right now, the primary initiative are using on-duty resources and overtime resources in that space. We have gathered information to assess whether it would be viable to use recapture or retired reserves in that area. Presently, that is overtime initiatives and on-duty resources being deployed to parks.
Okay. Well, when do you think you'll have that evaluation completed?
We will confer with Parks and Recreation, sir, on the final outcome of that report and be able to provide a time frame on that.
Okay. Well, thank you, Deputy Chief, and thank you, and want to thank all the men and women of APD for their efforts. I'm finished, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. We appreciate you.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right. We'll now move on to the Municipal Court of Atlanta today. We have Ms. Davis, our court administrator. I'm not sure if Judge Portis is going to be on, but Ms. Davis, are you there?
Good afternoon, Chairman Shepard. This is Rashida Davis. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Members of Public Safety and Legal Administration, I'm Rashida Davis, Court Administrator and Chief Clerk of Court for the Municipal Court of Atlanta. Slide 1. I'm excited today to present our final FY21 Municipal Court update for this committee. Slide 2. This slide is our caseload information for the fiscal year. Traffic cases remain steady at about 83% of our overall caseload, with 74,038 cases. We had 7,812 ordinance violations, 1,276 drug cases, 803 misdemeanor cases, 1,875 civil cases, and a combination of about 3,055 cases for our DUIs, parking, and serious traffic offenses. Slide 2. This year we implemented an online check-in program where we used a QR code for individuals to scan prior to entering our facility. This QR code would prompt the individual to answer 3 questions related to COVID, whether or not they had tested positive for COVID-19, whether or not they had been exposed to it, or whether or not they had experienced any symptoms. They were required to complete this prior to entering our facility, and then they would be temperature scanned. Since opening in October, we've had about 43,006 individuals who have entered our facility. The software helps us to maintain our levels of appropriate space in each individual courtroom, department, and shared area. Slide 4. Slide 4 is a snapshot of all of our traffic cases that we received throughout the fiscal year, and also the traffic cases that were closed. This makes up our overall clearance rate. Traffic cases are our best closeout cases. For May, we're returning back to our normal levels, which are about 90 or 95% of closeout. Slide 5. This is the same information for our criminal cases, the total cases filed by month, and the total cases of closed by month as well. Slide 6. Slide 6 is our failure to appear, or FTA rate, from March 2017 throughout May 2021. So it kind of gives you a real picture of the trajectory of our failure to appear rate in the Municipal Court of Atlanta. Also, we have identified the 2 probably major incidents that had impacted our FTA rate, which were the cyber attack and, of course, COVID-19. Slide 7. So in an effort to resolve our FTAs, we went back to our Amnesty Week We had a very successful event in the last week of May where we allowed individuals who had open or unresolved cases, and whether or not they had an FTA or warrant, to come in and get their cases resolved. And as you can see from the chart, May 21 had the highest FTAs that were resolved, with 1,446 cases that were successfully closed out. For this fiscal year, we had a total of 8,444 cases that were resolved by individuals coming to court and resolving their outstanding cases. So it was a very successful event. Slide 8. Slide 8 reflects our call volume. This is handled by our partnership with ATL 311. You can see over the period of time as we got closer to the end of the fiscal year, our call volume returned back to the normal load, which is generally about around 10,000 calls per month. The top 5 questions really don't change. It's always how much is my court fine and how do I pay, when is my court date and time, requesting a 912 release, which is tied to their Department of Driver Services license. What if I missed my court date? And if their court date was impacted by the closure, we would provide information about their reset court date. Last slide. That concludes the end of our fiscal year presentation. If you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to entertain them at this time.
I have a question. I talked to Judge Porter last week, and I'm not sure if he's on the call today. But according to him, we're actually getting ready to go back into a process where we're going to be actually receiving more folks in the court. Is that correct? I think right now the average court, people who come to court every day, the average is about 30. And I think they're talking about possibly going up to 100, hopefully sometime in July or no later, because of COVID, the fact that we're going back to a normal. Is that correct?
Yes, Chairman Shepherd, that is correct. We will be increasing our calendar capacity. We've had a phased process where we started off with smaller courtroom sizes of about 20, then we went up into another level, and we will return back to our 100 calendar capacity beginning in July.
Now, is 100 your average capacity, or is that just where you're going to go and start with that? What's the average capacity before COVID-19?
Prior to COVID, it would be about 100 to 125 positions on the calendar. So we're almost where we used to be.
So will that be every courtroom or just all together? Is that a total together on an everyday basis at the municipal court is 120 something? What is that average?
Yes, it would be about 100 positions on each arraignment calendar. Every judge handles about 2 arraignment calendars, and then they have a status and a trial calendar each day.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other questions from my colleagues?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir, Mr. Bond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Court Administrator, for your very informative presentation. But I do have a question. I don't know if you can answer it. About 3 months ago, we passed a task force group to look at improving, not ending, the bail reform program, and wanted to know if you had any information on the status of that.
Hey, good afternoon, Councilmember Bond. This is Judge Portis. I'm on the call. At this point, we haven't received at least any further information about the formalization or the actual formation of the task force itself, or whether or not there have been any meetings. Obviously, we have information that we can definitely pull together that could at least aid in the mission of the task force to come up with ideas and recommendations. But so far, we had not received anything further about the mobilization of the task force itself, and are awaiting that to, go at least to the initial meeting to have it start up and begin.
Okay, well, I will get with you about that, because as we drafted the legislation, that was something the intention was that the court and would drive the process, but I'll get with you to make sure that gets underway, because I didn't want anyone who was quote unquote political to be involved, so that the experts in the court and criminal justice space, who I believe are best suited to make those recommendations, would be involved in reevaluating the policy. But I'll get with your office about that.
Okay, I'd appreciate that, and I appreciate that general sentiment. Obviously, from our standpoint, we like to steer clear of the politics as much as possible, just based on our mission of impartiality and fairness, but to the goal of piecing together the information and being able to come up with at least some idea of where we've been and where we could possibly go. We're prepared to do that. So I'll look forward to the opportunity to speak with you about that, and we're prepared to get started whenever we're mobilized to do so.
Okay, well, I'll reach out to you this week. Thank you.
Is that it, Mr. Boone?
Yes, ma'am. That's it.
All right.
Thank you.
Ms. Boone, I saw you had your hand up. Do you still have a question? Apparently not. I think Judge Porter, you're back on. I'm going to go back to what Ms. Winslow was talking about a little earlier about the homeless piece. Okay, Ms. Boone, before I do that, Ms. Boone, are you back?
Yes, ma'am. I was cut off, disconnected a little bit, but I just want to thank the entire team, Ms. Erica Smith, and everyone that was responsible for the Darren Village nuisance, and Judge Portis. You all did so much work on that property beforehand, and just wanted to thank you all on behalf of the MPUH and I. That has been a terrible sore spot in our community. Again, thank you.
Thank you, Council Member. On the court side, we're here to ensure that there is a fair and efficient process. So to that end, I hope that we have met that responsibility of moving the matter from filing to finalization within the time required by law and within the expectation of your city's court system. Obviously, we take no position on side or interest in it. We take the cases blindly, and the evidence is what drives ultimately the decision.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, and Andre, I want to say congratulations for actually getting that taken care of in your district. I have something a little similar to that in my district, and I heard about what happened over at Darren Village, and they did an excellent job. I mean, this was a property, from what I understand. You had crimes galore, code violations, water bill, you name it, they had it. And the city took it on, and the court system as a nuisance abatement, and that was a good example. And congratulations to everybody who was involved with that.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Judge Portis, Ms. Winslow was talking a moment ago about homelessness, and you have homeless programs in your court, but she was, and I can understand her frustration. I get like that a lot of times myself in terms of helping the homeless. But your program does a lot, and I know you talked in the past about how it turns some folks around in your program. Do you see it as successful, or what else would you suggest in terms of what we do, or other things that you suggest we do to deal with this homeless situation?
Well, one of the biggest issues that we see on the court side, whether it is residents, whether it's business owners, even from the standpoint of MARTA, is the continuing revolving nature of some of the behavior from the exact same folks, and oftentimes which is perceived as minor for the people who are experiencing it, especially on a repeated basis. It doesn't seem to be minor on their end, and it's just the call, the request to start closer look at the cases and do what we can to regulate the behavior, and at the same time try to get individuals connected with resources. And obviously that is at a varying degree depending on where the person is and what they have going on. One of the things that the court administrator mentioned was the Amnesty Program that we ran back in May, and that was a twofold purpose. One, it was to give individuals the opportunity to come in and resolve their cases that were owed and languishing, but also it was with an eye towards the end of the emergency COVID order declaration by the Chief Justice of the Georgia Supreme Court. And as we kind of return to some normalcy in the court system, we will be looking towards placing warrants back for individuals who continuously and repeatedly fail to appear in court. And that's going to have some impact on those folks who have multiple open cases. Up to now, due to COVID, there was at least some grace period with failing to appear. That will be coming to an end as we exit out of the COVID period, and those folks, as they come in contact with law enforcement, it will be seen that they have active arrest warrants and detainers, and we'll be working with our judicial partners to make sure that those folks aren't just simply cycling and continuously cycling back out with multiple offenses. So that's going to be something that will immediately begin to impact some of the behavior even that Councilmember Winslow was depicting that's going on in the streets in her district. Some of these individuals have open cases, and if they're unresolved and they have been unresponsive, they will be flagged, and the next time someone comes in contact with them, they'll be commanded to take them into custody, and that will begin to allow us as a system to identify what's going on and try to steer these individuals to not only a different behavioral track, but also to be connected to some of the services and resources that we hope will not only make them better off, but make our communities better off as well.
Okay, well, as I said, this is a complicated situation. I know some people I get people in my neighborhood saying, why can't y'all just get the homeless people off the street? And it's so complicated. It's very complicated in terms of us holding them, and then they have mental illness, and then you try to get them services, and you may give them a service for a moment, and it may help for a moment, but when you release them, they go back out and do the same thing again, and then where do we have a real facility that can treat them? It's just very complicated, and I just want to ask, I know your programs, you all do a lot to try to help them, and we appreciate what you do, but it's much more complicated than what a lot of people assume it to be. And go ahead.
There's no doubt about, the not only the severity, but the complexity of the situation. And it's also something that is not solved with a blanket approach. These situations have to be dealt with on a case-by-case basis, but we also have to be committed to doing that case-by-case basis approach to it. So we try to make sure that folks understand that this is not a one-size-fits-all type of solution, but also it's very dependent on those individuals actually making it into the court system so that we can, in some instances, require that certain things actually occur. Mental and substance abuse evaluations in some instances are absolute requirements so that we can be able to scratch the surface and start to find out the root causes of some of it. But also we have to let the individuals who are in the system know that mental illness, substance abuse alone does not remove from the equation that there are victims to their acts, there are consequences to their acts, and as a system and as a society, we want to make sure that not only are they better off, but that our communities and the folks inside our communities are better off as well.
All right. Thank you, Judge Fulton. Are there any other questions? Thank you. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Davis, also. We appreciate you also. All right. We'll now move on to our, I asked for COO, Mr. King, to come forward and give us an update on the ACDC and where we are in terms of that. If you all have not read your emails, we know we have been going back and forth. We had a work session several weeks ago. We have received information. That work session was interesting, and we're trying to negotiate as a follow-up to that work session. So there's been conversation back and forth between the commission. Fulton County Commission gave the purview to Sheriff Labatt to actually negotiate with the city in terms of what we were going to do with ACDC. So the mayor actually sent a letter to Sheriff Labatt. Sheriff Labatt has responded. You all should have copies of those letters. But today I wanted to ask our COO to come on to talk to us about where the administration is at this point in terms of the next steps with ACDC. So Commissioner COO King, could you please come forward, Mr. King? Is he on, Ms. Lindo?
I'm verifying that, Madam Chair. I've just reached out to staff.
Madam Chair, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, Mr. King. Thank you.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to provide an update today. I'll just briefly share an update related to negotiations with Fulton County related to the Atlanta City Detention Center. As you may recall, the chair of the Fulton County Board of Commissioners reached out to express an interest in leasing 500 beds at ACDC. In response to this request, we developed a letter of intent in collaboration with the Fulton County Manager's Office that was guided by Fulton County's proposed jail reduction strategies, the ACDC Reimagine ACDC Task Force, and the Fulton County Mental Health and Justice Task Force. The letter of intent was shared with the Fulton County Manager's Office and the Fulton County Commission Chair in March. The mayor met with the chair twice to discuss it. No edits or a reasonable counterproposal have been provided, only a reiteration of the initial request. Since then, as you know, Fulton County Commission has worked to clarify who is authorized to negotiate on behalf of the county. They passed a resolution in early June authorizing the sheriff to do so. And the sheriff sent a letter on June 15th to the mayor, simply again repeating the same initial request of leasing 500 beds at ACDC. The mayor has responded to that letter, saying that she is willing to continue discussions and that she looks forward to receiving a counterproposal to the letter of intent, but that simply repeating the same initial request does not demonstrate a good faith effort towards reaching an agreement. The mayor's response also mentions that the sheriff currently has other facilities within his control that he is unable to staff, which you all may have seen reported in the media or heard discussed during the last Fulton County board meeting. This information obviously makes continued repeated requests for 500 additional beds and an additional facility hard to understand. But as mentioned, the mayor's open to further discussing the needs and plans to reach an agreement that will best serve the residents of the city and county. While we understand that a joint committee may be established, those discussions through a committee can only produce recommendations for the mayor's consideration as the mayor's the only person authorized to negotiate intergovernmental agreements on behalf of the city. There have been 2 task forces and numerous discussions and work sessions which provide a strong framework for an agreement. And, another committee likely only further delays the negotiation of an agreement between the mayor and the sheriff. At this point, it is in Fulton County's hands to display a good faith effort by offering a reasonable counterproposal based on the discussions and documented needs to date. And the final point I will mention which builds upon earlier discussion you all have had today, both during APD's update as well as during the update from Judge Portis and his team, is related to mental health diversion and supportive services needs. The staff of the city and county have recently developed a coordinated proposal for a Center for Diversion and Services at the current Atlanta City Detention Center, building on the previous work that I've already mentioned. This has been part of a coordinated effort with the state, the county, and the city, funded by a federal government grant. And the mayor has been clear that any agreement that we make with the county cannot be focused only on expanding jail beds, but must also meet the full needs that have been articulated by the community and the staff of the city and the county. And so, again, we await that counter proposal, which gives us a sign of good faith effort to negotiate, and we hope that that will move forward very quickly. And that's where we stand today. So thank you again, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to provide an update.
Okay, so when I read, and I have both of your letters here in front of me, the one from the mayor and you all, and I'm just trying, I don't know if I'm trying to be an arbitrator or what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to get us to a point where we can move forward one way or the other. So for me, and I talked to Sheriff Labatt in the last couple of days, and one of the things we talked about, I asked him very specifically what it is that he's looking for. They know at this point, and we also know as a city that we made that very clear that we're not interested in selling the jail to Fulton County. However, we are interested in doing collaborations, as you said, and the collaboration could be one where he's asking for 500 beds. Now, as I had a conversation with him in terms of that, I asked him what did that mean. And basically, he was saying right now they have literally just about 300 people who are on floors at Fulton County. So he's still asking for 500 beds, 300 for that. He's also interested in working in terms of looking at possibly the women's facilities and some of the other kind of programs so we could create. What has to happen in terms of all of this, Mr. King, and I've said this to Mr. Labatt, is the devil is in the details in terms of, number one, is this what they want? And you all want this. I see the two letters going back and forth. What I've said to him is, why don't y'all just set up a meeting, make a call, get it on the agenda and have a one-on-one, but going back and forth. And I know this is a paper trail or do an email invite or something, but at least have a conversation in terms of what the intents are, just like I've had conversations with him. So to me, right now, it seems like we're playing these, I don't know, I want to say political games, but, I understand, what y'all making on record, what was intended and back and forth. But when can we get to a point where there's a real conversation in terms of how we can negotiate? Number one is how many beds, 300 for beds, other services that they could provide. You all talking very specifically about the needs. And I've told you, Commissioner King, I think that, converting ACDC into something that will be a win-win in terms of a diversion program, for re-entering, all the other things in terms of what we have over there, it's a good plan. I don't have any problems with that. I would tell you I'm not necessarily in support of selling the jail at this point. I'm not there. I think we can do some other things with the jail. We have 1,300 beds. We need to work at how we can collaborate. And that's the problem I'm having, is folks not being able to collaborate in terms of the issues that we've had. And so I'm trying to figure out how we can get there. And so that's why I asked for a report today of what's going on. I asked Mr. Labatt to come. He couldn't schedule and allow him to come today. But I will be reaching back out to him again in terms of collaborating. And according to how they actually did this work, Labatt's understanding is at this point, even in terms of committee, we're not sure if a committee based on, and even the law department of Fulton County recognized that there is no joint committee that was recognized by Fulton County. So basically, from what Labatt said to me, the only negotiating is actually on him, and again on this side with you. But at the end of the day, I also would say to you is that even though you all say y'all had task force and all these different things, I will say that at the end of the day, regardless of what happened, there are different branches of government. The mayor is a branch, and the council is a branch. And at the end of the day, whatever happens, even in terms of Mayor Bottom's recommendations for what she wants to see, if she talks about closing it, the council never made that commitment. It was Mayor Bottom who made that commitment. And then she has to bring her recommendations to us. The committee was not a committee of the council. This was a committee of folks on the outside, because they confronted me on this on several times on the outside and saying, you all promised. And I'm like, I was not on a committee where I made a promise that we would close the jail.
Your host has joined.
The mayor made a promise to close the jail, but whatever happens in terms of closing the jail has to come back before the council for a vote. So whatever recommendation is going to be made in terms of that is that we as the council have to weigh in on that and vote on that also. So, when you talk about committees and task force and this and that and the other, at the same time, as we're going through all of this, folks are still at a crisis in terms of jails and everything else. And so we need to move forward. And based on the work session we had and the resolution we did and the resolution that the county sent back, this is where we are. And I'm just trying to understand how we can get to a point where we can, or is it going to be just a stalemate where nothing happens? So are you willing to sit down with Mr. Labat? And do I need to just say, can we all just get along and get us all in the room together? Or get you
The mayor's been very, I'm sorry, Chair Shepard. Just to respond to that particular question, the mayor's been very clear that she's willing to sit down, and she's articulated that, I think, in all of her responses. There was a very thoughtful process early on in this, and we worked very closely with the county to put together, again, a starting point for the negotiations. And since then, it doesn't feel like it's made progress, honestly, and they have not. They just continue to kind of reiterate the same request. And I think that's been the challenge, is ultimately if there's no real willingness to discuss and negotiate an agreement that's in the best interest of the city and the county, until they are at a point where they're willing to do that, meetings, don't necessarily make sense. But ultimately there's a clear openness and a desire to do that and to work through it. And I think that could be done quickly if both parties are willing to negotiate.
Okay. Are there questions from my colleagues?
I'm trying to understand what Mr. King just said, because I heard what you said, but I'm trying to understand the underneath meaning of what you said. So, are you meeting with them, or you're not meeting with them? And what are the? And I know you may not be able to talk about everything that you're talking about, but originally they said they wanted to buy the jail. That was out. Then we talked about the 500 bed space that we were offering. So is there an agreement there on the 500 beds? Where are their agreements? Where are their commonalities? Let me put it like that. Not agreements, I just say commonalities. How about that?
Well, again, just to kind of talk through some of the history, Councilmember Winslow, we met with the county the mayor met with the Chairman Pitts multiple times, and we had met and discussed with other members of the Fulton County Manager's Office and worked through and developed, in response to their initial request, a draft letter of intent to facilitate continued discussion and negotiation. So there's absolutely been a willingness to meet. We believed that there were certain clear points of alignment and agreement. That's why we developed that draft letter of intent to continue those discussions. So there's absolutely been a willingness to meet, and there was identified some clear areas of alignment. And now we've got to understand, because we've gotten no response to that other than reiterating the initial request, which is not a sign of good faith effort to negotiate.
So neither side has agreed to the 500 spaces, 500 beds. Am I correct on that? I'm just asking.
Yes.
So you haven't agreed to offer up 500 spaces, and they haven't agreed to take 500 beds. So help me.
Yes, I mean it's more complicated than that, but there's been no agreement with that.
So let me say, in 2008, I used to work over at Fulton County, for 9 years. I was there when they talked about putting together the new jail. I was there through that whole process. So I was on the last negotiating team with former Mayor Shirley Franklin. So we were over there talking to Fulton County. So I understand how negotiations go, just like Councilmember Shepherd understands. I'm just trying to find out. It sounds like you stopped meeting. I mean, you know why I'm pressing it, and I'm not going to press it too much more, Madam Chair, because I think Howard Schick has a question, is because we're not getting any answers. We're just getting shuffling. I don't like shuffling. That's not good. That's not good, because you're talking air, and that's not good. That's all I'm saying. I mean, I recognize what you're saying, and you're not saying anything. I get that. I understand that. And it could be, because of whatever. But I'm not hearing anything. And so that's why I'm kind of digging in a little bit to see, what's going on. So I'll stop there, Madam Chair. Okay?
Thank you, Ms. Winslow. Mr. Bond, and then after that, Mr. Hillis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. CEO, for your explanations. But the stated policy of the city of Atlanta is that the mayor and whoever the representative from Fulton County was or is were to negotiate until May the 31st. If they had no resolution, which they did not, then a committee would be formed to come back with recommendations. That is the only official policy of the city of Atlanta. Anything else is coloring with your crayons outside of the lines. The official policy-making body, the Atlanta City Council, the governing authority for whom the mayor derives their power to do anything, decided with the mayor's acquiescence, I must say, and encouragement, because it was the administration's resolution that was amended and introduced by our chair that was subsequently amended and combined with another resolution with the approval of the administration, that is the action that we would take, that we would proceed as a city. So whether Fulton County, it would have been nice if they had done the exact same thing that we did. They didn't, but we're still a body that passed a policy, and that should be followed. And that is the policy, frankly, the administration should be following. We shouldn't be asking them for an update where things are. We should be asking them who is their appointment to this committee. And we should be putting our own people on the committee to do its job so that we can reach a conclusion to these negotiations, or take at least another step in making progress on these negotiations. As we fiddle, or rather as the administration fiddles, there is a real human crisis going on at the Fulton County Jail. A crisis that this government, through its constitutional responsibilities, contributes to. Now, this administration was brave and noble and stood up before the country on the very real human crisis at the border some 4 years ago. certainly they're not going to acquiesce on the real human crisis going on a mile and a half away over at Rice Street. You know, Black Lives Matter to this administration. If lives of color matter, like they do down on the border, then they should matter right over on Rice Street also. So what I would humbly suggest is that we make the appointments to the committee, which is the official and the only official policy position that the city of Atlanta has taken on this matter. And then we get down to talking with our county sheriff and the appropriate counterparts that are on that committee. When I have read the mayor's letter in response to what the sheriff actually needs, you know, all of this, and no offense to the CEO, but in my personal opinion, speaking only for myself, it just sounds like obfuscation and deflection. And it is frankly, I'm disappointed in the mayor, I'm disappointed in the administration for its response. You know, given the fact that we have already decided what the policy of the city of Atlanta actually is. The mayor is the executive officer. The administration is the executive, means that they execute the policy that the city council sets. The executive branch doesn't set policy. The city council does. The mayor, whoever the mayor is, they negotiate they negotiate on behalf of the city because the city council allows it. The city council provides for that. They do it on our behalf. Okay, they're not the sole arbitrator to decide who and when and what they will negotiate. They negotiate the policy of the city of Atlanta at the behest of the city council. There's a check and balance here. There are no kings or queens, no dictators. The executive branch execute the policy that we set as the city council. So having said that, I would just implore us, the public safety chair gets to make an appointment, the council gets to make an appointment, the council president gets to make an appointment, the mayor gets to make an appointment. The county commissioners, we need to ask them for their 3 appointments, and the sheriff gets to make one. And we need to move on because it is clear, left to their own devices and decisions, the administration, in my opinion only, is going to continue to obfuscate and deflect because they don't want to do it. And it's obvious they don't want to do it. Okay? Based on every action that they've taken to this point. And Ms. Shepard, you're absolutely correct. These commissions that were set up were not commissions of council. They were not committees of council. They were set up to bring back findings from a group of citizens, which is not binding on the city of Atlanta, the mayor, council, or otherwise. It's advice. And we've accepted it in the form of their report, and it's up to ultimately to the city council to decide what will happen, if anything, with that facility. And so we have, as I've said many times before, the only official policy statement that exists on this facility and what will happen with it is the resolution we passed more than 30 or maybe 45 days ago. And that's the procedure we should follow. The sheriff does have the ability to negotiate on behalf of the county at any time for jail facilities or criminal justice facilities, and he's doing his job. Not acknowledging his need of what the mayor's response letter did, given the human cost that's going on, I think is extremely disappointing. We all know what's going on. We are all adults. We just need to move on and follow what our rules say. And what our rules say is that we set the policy, the mayor executes. We've executed the policy, and they need to follow suit, and we need to move on. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I could just make one brief statement in response.
Go ahead, Mr. King.
Just 2 quick points. Councilmember Bond, I just want to disagree with your characterization that the mayor or the administration has delayed this discussion. As I mentioned, we initiated this quickly after a request was made in February and have had many discussions in February and March in order to put something clearly on paper to begin this process. It has not moved forward since then, and it's not because of the mayor or the administration. The second is I wasn't taking away from the legislation that was passed recommending a joint committee. Nothing I stated said that cannot move forward. My main point was that I think this could be resolved quickly, much faster, if ultimately there was continued and further encouragement for Fulton County to negotiate and ultimately allow us to then bring something back to the city council for you all to consider to authorize the mayor to enter into that agreement. And I mean, as you all know, the mayor is given powers in the city charter that allow her to be the person responsible for intergovernmental negotiations. And so those powers given to her by the city charter is what I'm referring to as something that ultimately we would hope to be able to move forward with that negotiation and then bring a something for the city council to consider and authorize her to enter into.
Just to respond to that, the policy that's set forth in our charter, the mayor negotiates based on the authorization of the city council. And the mayor is supposed to negotiate what is not what might be the mayor's opinion or stance on an issue. The mayor is supposed to negotiate what is the official policy of the city of Atlanta. Okay? Regardless, whatever the policy is. Not what the mayor's personal or political view might be, or the view of the administration. So the view of the administration is supposed to be what the policy is that the city council sets. That's what's in the charter. And secondly, it's my personal opinion that there has been a delay, and I stated that because I know the powers of the executive branch. And I know that in Rob Pitt's letter, the chairman's letter, he stated that they were willing to give you all what you wanted in the way of policy dynamic, and you didn't accept it. So, I don't want to go back and forth with you, but I'm fully aware of what has taken place. And in my opinion, it's obfuscation and it's delay. And that's my opinion. And I'm entitled to that. But I do know, having been around for quite a while, that the administration can make something happen when they want to. And I'll end it there.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. We're going to move on to Mr. Hillis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is just getting more and more frustrating. I'll echo everything Councilmember Bond just stated, and also my colleagues before that. Myself and a number of other colleagues have went over to Rice Street, Fulton County Jail, and observed the conditions there and hundreds of people that are sleeping on the floors on boats each night. And, this has been going on for a number of months. And it's very clear to me that one side is very able and willing to make this happen, and that being Sheriff Labatt. And much to what Councilmember Bond says, this administration has shown is that if it wants something to happen, it puts 110% effort in it and it happens. That has not been the case here. And just one thing I would like some clarity on is we've heard a lot of back and forth about this purported letter of intent that was submitted, or a draft, so to speak, letter of intent. Can we get that sent to us? Because all I've seen, I've last got it sent to me back on early this month, June 1st, and it just says, well, it's titled draft for discussion, but it in no way, shape, or form resembles a letter. It's a bunch of bullet points that even says at the top that this is a document is to provide an outline of a letter of intent. I've not seen any letter of intent that includes all the parts that a proper letter should include even a draft. We know it's a date, an address, salutation, a signature, a closing. I haven't seen that. So that's something, if it actually exists, as the administration reports, that's something I would like to see, because all I've seen is this little quickly typed up one-page bullet points that, if I turn this in as a draft letter in fourth grade English, I'd probably get an F for. So that's the document that I would like to see, that if that actually exists out there, is that letter of intent that was submitted to the county.
Thank you for the question, Councilmember Hillis. The letter of intent that you're referring to is the letter of intent, and a couple reasons why. One, it was not quickly put together. That actually came through thoughtful discussions with Fulton County around what had been put forward by the Fulton County Mental Health and Justice Task Force, as well as the AC Reimagine, the Reimagine ACDC Task Force, as well as proposed strategies that Fulton County had articulated it itself related to how they were going to reduce their jail population. So that was a very thoughtful document that took time to work through in order to put it on paper and make sure that it articulated something as a starting point. It was labeled as draft primarily for the purpose of, we were not trying to insinuate that this is final, because it's the starting point for a discussion and a negotiation, and ultimately served as the basis for the discussions when the mayor met with Chairman Pitts twice to discuss how we could ultimately come to an agreement that could then be, again, shared with the council and with the Fulton County Commission to authorize. It was ultimately part of broader communication. So there were letters that had been sent back and forth, and this was in essence attached and part of those communications.
Okay, well, I'm not going to belabor the point, but I'm just saying that what we have been presented as a quote-unquote letter of intent in no way, shape, or form resembles a proper letter. It doesn't even show who it's from, who it's to, doesn't have the city letterhead on it. Let's just cut out the crap and let's get these people off the floor at the Fulton County Jail and into proper accommodations. So I'll end it there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let me just go back and say, Mr. Bond, you and I may have differences of opinion in terms of this joint committee. For the last week, I have reached out to Fulton County because once we had that work session, the work session was a resolution going forward to talk about creating a joint committee. And Mr. Erickson had introduced something, but they amended it in the Fulton County. So myself and Ms. Lindo have actually worked with the county clerk and the law department over there to say, tell us what was the final recommendation that came out of that discussion when they had it after we went through the work session. And the final resolution that came out, that I can send you all a copy, and I think I have sent a copy to some folks, including you, Mr. Bond, doesn't reference a committee at all, a combination committee at all. So when I interpreted that, we went and reached out to the law department to ask very specifically, is there going to be a working committee that was voted on by Fulton County? Because we know we did it over on our side, but on the other side. And the law department, I have a text from them saying, you're correct. There was no commission that was formed on the side of Fulton County. So when you're saying create a working commission, Mr. Bond, that includes these people, Fulton County never approved and voted it up. We sent that to them as a resolution, but they never came back and approved it and said, this is what we want to do. They came back with a resolution saying that allowing Sheriff Labatt to be the negotiator for the interactions in terms of the city with the jail. But it did not include at all anything talking about a working committee at all. So that's where I have differences of opinion on you, the law department, and I just have differences of opinion in terms of your interpretation of that. I just want to let you know that. But for me,
I'd like to.
Well, let me finish, Mr. Bond. Please let me finish.
Yes.
So, and for me, and Mr. King and everyone, and I wish Mr. Labatt was on the call today. I tried to get him to be here today so that we could try to come to something, but he couldn't be here. I think his staff person is listening. But all I want us to do is get to a point of where we are. And I will also say to you, in terms of the work sessions, when we talked about that, one thing we learned from the work session we had with Fulton County that I also would like to say is that the county folks said that, you all were reaching out to Commissioner Rob Pitt, and the resolution that came from the county was like, Mr. Pitt is not the negotiator. That's why they voted up to say that we would have Mr. Labatt to do the negotiation. So Mr. King had been working with Mr. Pitt, but apparently Mr. Pitt had not been having any of those discussions with the commissioners. And so you have to understand their form of government apparently is obviously just different than ours. And so in terms of who negotiates what. And so that was why I actually recommended that we go over and talk to them as a commission to see if they would support the recommendation we had from our resolution. And basically what they came back and said is, this is what we recommend doing. But it didn't say that we were going to actually support this committee. It said basically is that we're going to have Mr. Sheriff Labatt as a negotiator and to go forth and negotiate. So at this point, what I see personally is that Sheriff Labatt, which is what they have been doing, I think that's what he's been doing as proceeding forth. He sent a letter to the mayor's office. The mayor's office responded back, and he's responded back. So I'm just trying to get to a point where we can come to a conclusion. Now, maybe as a committee, we can say that this is what we want to have happen and put it as a resolution to come before the mayor for them to say, go and negotiate this. But I just feel like we're just going in circles now. This is kind of crazy to me, and it's, to me, a little silly also. It's political, and it's just so sad that we as a city are at a point that we're trying to do something that's good for the good of people, and we are playing political. I feel like the political games. It's like I don't get it. I mean, I just don't understand how we get here, and I'm just amazed that we can't come to a conclusion on this. And so I find it to be very frustrating. It's very disheartening, and I'm continuing to try to work to see what we can do to make it happen. I'm hoping that Mr. Labatt will reach out to Mayor and you all can have a one-on-one meeting. If that don't work, then, we'll have to see what else we can do. So anyway, Mr. Bond, I'm going to let you talk. And Mr. Hillis, do you still have your hand up?
No, Madam Chair, I'm done. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Bond.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair. What I would say to clarify for you, the stated policy of the City of Atlanta is what we passed. I had asked the Board of Commissioners simply to ratify what we had done just to shore it up. But it's not required for us to continue on the path that we've already established. The issues that wound up in the county's resolution were germane to the county. What had happened is what we all know. Commissioner Pitts was attempting to negotiate on behalf of the county. The state constitution in this particular arena gives that authority to the sheriff. The sheriff felt that he should have been the principal negotiator on behalf of the county, and he urged the county commissioners to basically put it in writing. They did that in their resolution, okay, to clarify that whatever issue that was going on between the chairman's office and the sheriff's office would be clear. The stated policy of the city of Atlanta is what we passed with the support of the administration, because they gave you the resolution. And we said at the end of on May 31st, if the administration, i.e. the mayor, didn't come back with a resolution, which they easily could have done, in my opinion, that we would establish this group to make the recommendations back to the city. And I believe that that is the procedure that we should follow.
So
it is clear. It is.
Okay,
I'm sorry. I don't want to be interrupted. I'm not quite finished, Madam Chair. That is the state policy of the city of Atlanta. Underneath our charter, that is the position the administration must take. They don't get to form their own opinion because the city council establishes the laws and the policy of the city of Atlanta. And the executive branch is supposed to execute. Now, we know, it's obvious, that we can see with all of our eyes that they're not following that. So our alternative, we are at the point of our alternative that you just mentioned, that we need to set up our committee and we need to go forward. The sheriff is on that committee. Now, if the mayor and the sheriff want to continue independent of that to communicate, I support that. They should. But there's nothing that should stop us from moving on what we've already acted upon.
Who else will be on the committee, Mr. Bob?
You know, everyone else is in support of us talking, and so we should go ahead and just do that. And of course, if these former Astros, the mayor and the sheriff, can get together, I'm all for it. They've known each other for 30 plus years. They should do it. But there's nothing that says that we should stop because these people are on the floor. You know, this is an embarrassment, really, that this has not happened already. It is embarrassing for this administration. It's embarrassing for the city. It's embarrassing for the county commission and the sheriff. This is so much common sense. It's so obvious. It's so big. It's like it's not the moon, it's the sun that this should have happened. And it's frankly an extreme low point for this administration that it hasn't. And I'm disappointed on many, many, many levels with some of the persons who are involved that it has not already occurred. In my hometown, in my city, the city too busy to hate, the city home place of Martin Luther King. This should be the biggest no-brainer on planet Earth, but it hasn't happened. And so to hear this kind of, or rather to see and experience the lack of execution by the administration on this issue over things that Fulton County has already said that they would give, it's just absolutely atrocious. This is the lowest, worst non-action by the administration I've experienced since I was born in April of 1966. It is the lowest. lowest, most inept, it is just the lowest point of any city government that I've ever experienced in my life living here in Atlanta. I have to say that. This is an atrocity of incompetence. It is just the worst. It is the worst administration effort I've ever seen in Atlanta. It is the lowest point. And it is a disgrace to, we say we've got 6 African American. It is a disgrace that we got an African American led administration, and yet we've got African Americans in those conditions 2 miles away. And they won't jump to resolve it. They can resolve it today. They can pick up the phone and resolve it today. And it's absolutely a disgrace that they won't. So we've acted appropriately. We have a policy. There's only one policy in place in Atlanta, and we passed it. They need to follow it, and we need to populate that committee, and we need to move on. Now, if they can go to IHOP or, Bones or some restaurant, sit down and work this out, or just pick up the phone and do it today, I'm all for that. But we don't need to not act because somebody got their panties in a bunch and mad that somebody's trying to, quote unquote, take their jail. It's idiocy, it's unprofessional, and it is beneath all of us. And it is a disgrace to those who come before us who served in these seats. And it's, there's an old African proverb. It says, when elephants fight, it's the grass that suffers. The people who are suffering, it's not me. It's not the people who supported the resolution. It's not the people who've advocated to keep that, to give the county facility. It's the people who are sleeping on the boats, who are sleeping on the floor, who are, who've been in these cramped conditions while they're awaiting trial. They're only accused. They're accused of horrible things, but they're only accused. They haven't been proven guilty. Shouldn't have lived in those kinds of conditions. Yet and still, we play this game over here with bail reform and this other crap, saying that we're progressive on criminal justice. They're talking out of both sides of their mouth. And it's insincere, and it's just absolutely atrocious. And I apologize, Madam Chair, I lost my temper, but, we've got a policy in place. We need to take our actions. If they can resolve it, outside of that, great. But we need to continue to move on. And I will yield.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. I'm going to read, and I'm going to ask the Law Department to pull up Resolution 21-R-3259, a resolution urging Mayor Keisha Lance Bottom, Administration of Fulton County Commission, and Chairman Rob Pitts, Sheriff Patrick Watt, to conclude their negotiations concerning a proposed letter of intent, which outlines the city of Atlanta could temporarily utilize the ACBC facility as a location to provide additional programs and services. The collaboration of Fulton County and other partners by no later than May 31st, 2021, and to provide, if there is no conclusion to these negotiations by May 31st, 2021, that the Atlanta City Council shall establish a Atlanta Joint Fulton County Joint Committee consisting of representatives from the City of Atlanta and Fulton County government to conduct the ongoing assessment of recommendation regarding justice reforms and the resolution of the county jail overcrowding issue and for other related purposes. Again, that was the resolution. And we said by May 1st, if not, we would go ahead. But that was also based on whether Fulton County is going to have a joint commission. And there's a list of people who are on there. You even alluded to it earlier when you talked about the fact that we could ask people from Fulton County Commission to be on this committee. When they came back and we talked about their resolution and recommended it, they came back with another resolution. They didn't say that they want to be a part of a commission. So that's fine if that's what we're saying, and just let me say this. I just also to talk about the jail, I want us to provide services to everybody in the city of Atlanta, but I also am a citizen of the city of Fulton County. And while I say that we have a jail here, we can work with them, and I ask for support, we work with them, I don't think it's my belief that we should be just giving them arbitrarily the jail, which I said I would vote against. But at the same time, Fulton County, the jail problem over in Fulton County has been around for a long time. And when I go over there and look at what I see at Fulton County, this is not the first time. There's been a problem over at White Street for years. So for me, as a City of Atlanta elected official and a resident, I should be holding Fulton County more accountable also for what they're doing. And I'm not saying that we don't support and work with them, but all of this, the only of this can't be that this is just Fulton County. And I do see where I've read things from Mr. Labat has looked at other jail systems in terms of other places that he can send people. Well, some of the things the mayor's saying is true, and some of it could be extending it or pushing it out way out. But I think that's why it gets into this tit for tat thing based on, I don't want this, you want that, I want that. So I'm saying, yes, we can negotiate, but I'm not going to put the onus of all of this on the city of Atlanta. And I just think that it's time for us, Mr. Pitt, what I found with Mr. Pitt is when he negotiated, apparently he didn't talk to any of his colleagues on council about this. So he was negotiating in phase with Ms. Bottoms without coming before the council for a suggestion anyway. He was just doing that based on what he saw. And I've talked to Mr. Pitt, and Mr. Pitt has said a couple of times that we're either sell the jail or we're not going to sell the jail, this and that and the other. So then when we go to the work session, everybody over there is saying, we don't even know, had no discussion on all of this. So Mr. Bond, while we're saying this, I still say the Fulton County has an issue, and there are some issues over there with Fulton County also, not just in the city of Atlanta, on both sides. So if you want to point your finger at the mayor, I say point it, but also point it back over to the other side over there also. Because I see this as just some politics and some crazy stuff that we all need to be, as elected officials, get past it and look at what's best for everybody, not just for one entity over others. So I'm not going to point my finger at one person not pointing the other way and say, my goodness, what is going on? I challenge Mr. Labat and everybody else that they need to build a new jail. Should have did it years ago. So why is it that can't happen? As a proposing county resident, now I'm looking at it, so what the world are they doing over there? They can't get a jail bill. They got people on the floor. The people even know they on the floor over there. All the elected officials asking, can they see what we see when we went over there in court? My God. And I would be crying. I would be screaming and hollering on that side over there. So we got to look at it on both sides. And so that's all I'm saying, Mr. Bond. And I know what you're pushing, but I'm going to say I'm not sure in terms of interpretation if that's correct. But let me just say this. Mr. Labat, I believe, has come on the call. I understand. I just got a call that said that he is active on the call at this point. If he is, Mr. Labat, can we open it up, Ms. Lindo, and see if Mr. Labat is on the call?
Yes,
hey, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming in.
So first of all, thank you all. I have heard everybody's, and I appreciate everyone's passion. I stand ready on behalf of the county to negotiate to whatever end there may be. And so I have said this in writing, not once but twice. And I will certainly take up for the Board of Commissioners when they clearly understand, as a constitutional officer, elected official, that when it comes down to being the sheriff, I have the sole responsibility when it comes to placement of detainees. If the conversation, and I went back this morning, and I was very intentional about looking through the conversation with respect to the Board of Commissioners, if there is a long-term lease, if there is a sale, that is a different conversation to which the Board of Commissioners have the constitutional authority to opine. As the sheriff of the county, I have availed myself, made myself available to any any elected official that wants to have this conversation. And I thank both of you all, Councilmember Bond and Shepard, for coming over to the facility, seeing it for yourself. I extended the same courtesy to the mayor and her team. Deputy COO Justin Johnson did come over and take a tour. But we are at a point right now that I believe, in my interpretation of the city ordinance, as well as what the Board of Commissioners have opined, is that we, right, all I need to know, and I've said this publicly, according to my understanding of the resolution, is that Chairperson Shepard will be on the committee once we figure out the other two individuals from the city council that will be attending. We can start those conversations. If the mayor is willing to either participate or send a representative, we can start those conversations. I cannot, and I'm not a lawyer, I cannot opine that a judge has a legal obligation to put forth a representative, neither the municipal nor the Superior Court judge. I'm certain that in the spirit of cooperation, they would like to do that, right? So based on the legislation that the committee supported and passed, I stand ready to have this conversation tomorrow. I put my team on notice this morning at command staff, find me the best and the most humane way to get 300 people off the floor. Let's do some exceptional programming for the ladies that at the South Annex. I had an opportunity to talk to Mayor Williams out at the South Annex. Some things that we can do by bringing those ladies closer and really empowering them from everything from mental health programs to entrepreneurial programs. He's certainly on board there, the mayor in Union City. So I've not sat by idly, and I am ready to transport as many as 500, and really I could transport more, but we have to, I agree with Councilman Bond, we have to, I have a duty to treat people humanely and get them off of the floor. And this, I'll add this and I'll be quiet, and I'm certainly willing to take any questions. And I want to make sure that this is something that we take into consideration as well. The American Bar Association has a standard for treatment of inmates in prisons. The correctional authorities should provide each prisoner, each detainee, at a minimum, a bed and a mattress off of the floor, a writing area, a seated area, an individual secured storage compartment, right? This comes straight out of section 23.3.1 of the American Bar Association for standard treatment. So all the lawyers in the room and all the lawyers that we have, we should know that we have a humanitarian emergency. We have our own pandemic, and we have the capability to solve it. I agree with you, Councilmember Shepard, that this has gone on for years, but quite simply, there's a new sheriff in town, and I'm willing to have that conversation. So let it be known. It is certainly disingenuous for anyone to come on and say the county has not and is not ready to move forward, because we absolutely are, and I agree with all of the parties. I live in Fulton County too. I help pay for that jail too. And we are in a space that we have to do better, and I stand ready to do that. We can meet tonight. If we want to go to the Waffle House, if we want to go to the St. Regis, it doesn't matter to me. We can meet tonight and get this done. I got transport units waiting and to stand by to treat people like they're human. And so I appreciate everyone's passion, and I certainly look forward to an opportunity, and I'm not going to let this moment pass us. This is a moment that we as elected officials, both the city and the county, can really, really have an impact on our overall community. And again, it goes back to what your mama taught you, right? If you know better, you do better. And this is that moment in time. So I'll stand by for any questions, but I'm certainly ready to have that conversation.
So Chief Labat, Sheriff Labat, I want to ask, have you, I know you've been sending letters back and forth. It's time for y'all to, I don't know if you heard me earlier, just pick up the phone, have your staff person call up first, say, can we set up a meeting? And we even talked about that. I mean, are you saying, is that too hard? And I'm going to ask Mr. King, is that so complicated, Mr. King, that y'all were simply refusing to do that? I'm going to ask both of y'all right here openly. Can y'all sit down and talk to each other?
I walk over there right now. I'm in my office. I'm in person. I'll walk over there right now if the mayor wants to have a conversation. If the mayor is formally putting Mr. King in charge of this conversation, I'll walk over there right now. I have been very plain and very clear of what I need. What our needs are, how we can do, and how we can do it. Now, keep in mind, we did that. We had one meeting, and the gauntlet was thrown down. This is the only way we are going to do business. As a matter of fact, the gauntlet went as far as saying the only way we're going to hold people is if the jails don't have cell doors on them. Well, as Mr. Bond pointed out, I have people with serious charges. So yes, I stand ready. I don't have a problem.
Mr. Labat, you saying that you had a meeting with the mayor?
We had a meeting. We had a meeting.
Who is
and I'll actually. So, Madam DA was there. John King was there. I'm gonna tell you. City Attorney was there. The mayor was there, and it was. This is not a new conversation. I started this conversation before I left the city of Atlanta when people did not think I was going to win this election, and I started it one-on-one with the mayor. And so I say that to say this. I am always willing to communicate, always willing to have the conversation. And so, look, if I don't deal with people that don't return my phone calls. So, I'm not going to sit here and not call a spade a spade. It is absolutely time that we continue to act like Astros and solve this issue. And I'm not asking at this point for 3 or 4 year solution. I agree with you, Madam Chair. The county has an obligation to build a new facility. And the best part about this is that the county commissioners are willing to have that conversation. Commissioner Khadijah Abdul-Rahman has actually plans on putting together a feasibility study, working with the county manager to do so. So we're attacking this from all fronts. You're right. The county should have done it, but I wasn't the sheriff then. I am the sheriff now, and as the sheriff, I am committed to treat people in a humane fashion, and we'll move forward. So I'm ready to have that conversation any place, anytime, and let's figure out how we move forward. Because the best part about it is, ultimately, the people that we have the responsibilities for care and custody win because they get off the floor, because they are in a space where we can provide programmatic opportunities for them. And I've said this publicly. I applaud the mayor and the administration for wanting to have a center of equity. What a first start. There's 1,300 beds over there, and we can start with this first 500.
And so, and to that point, and Mr. King, you haven't got off the foot yet. I'm going to come back and ask you to answer that question. But Sheriff Labat, let me ask you a question. If you had the 500, what do you want? Break down what you want the 500 to be. What do you want?
The first thing I would do is shut down. I'd move the ladies from South Annex because they are in need of really mental health programs, entrepreneurial programs. I can then start getting people off of the floor, and the remainder of the folks come off the floor. This weekend we had 280 people on the floor. And so right there we're at 500, right? I don't know where people have decided they're either going to, they don't get my count. The mayor's administration doesn't get my count on a daily basis. I get my count 3 times a day. and I'm looking at 3,000 people, 280 on the floor as of this morning. So we have an opportunity, and Madam Chair, what will happen is we can go through, identify long-term detainees who don't go to court for quite some time, and then we can turn around and start offering them services, whether it be GED services, whatever it looks like. But that's part of the negotiation. And so we have to move past where we are right now. And let me be clear, I have given the order for my team to find what 300 to 500 detainees look like in terms of less movement, and then I am going to start having conversations with both the governor and both Cobb County, because as unfortunate as it is, on one hand I can't tell you it's an emergent situation, and on the other hand do nothing about it. I am the sheriff of the largest county in the state of Georgia, and I have a responsibility to make sure we move off center. And I'm going to continue to do that. And I certainly hope that members of council and the mayor will join me in solving this issue.
Do you have a time frame?
I can start tomorrow. I mean, in terms of the conversations, I can start right now. In terms of the negotiations, I can start right now. In terms of movement, I can move individuals starting tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. King, I asked a question earlier in terms of what does it take for you all to have a conversation with Sheriff Labatt.
Chair Shepard, this is John King. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Well, I would say, this is promising, and I certainly think that there is hope, as there always has been, that we can reach an agreement. And I'll just state a couple of points building off of what Sheriff Labatt stated. So, one, the mayor has been and is willing to negotiate, and she's made that clear in all of her responses and all of her discussions that she's had directly with officials from Fulton County. And, the mayor will negotiate on her own behalf, as she's empowered to do via the city charter for intergovernmental affairs. And, I'll just reiterate one last point, which is, per the mayor's last response to the sheriff's letter, I think she's looking for a show of good faith effort, similar to what the mayor did when Chairman Pitts sent a request asking to lease 500 beds. She responded and put together a letter of intent based on discussions that had been had with the community, that had been had with Fulton County Manager's Office and others, and put that on paper as a beginning point for the discussion. And so there's seeking that same good faith effort in response to what was put on paper after that initial request, to articulate more than just that same ask over and over again, which is exactly what has been done. The ask to lease 500 beds with no other detail, nothing to say that there is a willingness. But again, I hear what the sheriff's saying. I hear the interest and the willingness to work through and figure out and come to that compromise. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity. And as I said, the mayor has shown and is willing to negotiate.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question. I got another somebody to speak. Mr. Faroki wants to speak. I'm going to let him speak. But I'm going to ask you, is the mayor available to come and to have this conversation today? Can you reach out to the mayor and see if she's willing to come and have a conversation with us today?
I can reach out. I've been on this call for the last few hours, but I can. I'll put myself on mute here and see if that is a possibility.
Thank you. I'll come back to you. Thank you. Mr. Faroki.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will be brief. We've had long exhortations and plenty of hyperbole the last couple hours, and I just wanted to make two quick observations. So one is, I want to thank Mr. Keene and the administration for trying to move this conversation along. I know approaching this with the values that the administration has espoused with respect to criminal justice reform is important, and I appreciate the integrity of the position the administration has maintained through all this. I do feel like at times we're either gaslighting ourselves or we're being gaslit, and that there's a lot of ire directed toward the administration, who I don't always agree with, but in this case I think is right, and the city of Atlanta for Fulton County's failings. And I'm a Fulton County resident myself. I pay Fulton County taxes, and I'm not here to point fingers, but let's not paper over the fact that Fulton County's challenges with this jail are not the city of Atlanta's doing. And I think that's somehow getting lost in this conversation a bit. And I don't think that this forum, this committee publicly, is the place for a negotiation to get to the middle ground. I mean, I think people need to go sit around the table and hash this out. So I'm not hopeful that we're going to get anywhere this afternoon, nor do I think we should in a public forum. But I do think it's important to recognize the fiduciary duty we have to the city of Atlanta as council members, and not to buy into hysteria and kind of the same demand over and over. There are a lot of other options that are in Fulton County's quiver that I'm not sure that they have leaned into. I think there's a kind of some political opportunism at play here as we think about how to approach this. All that goes to say, I've been encouraged by both Sheriff Labatt's remarks and John Keene's remarks, and hopefully we get to a middle space. But I would hope that we will stay grounded in the fact of what our role is as a city when it comes to not only maintaining public safety, but being financial fiduciaries of the assets we have and how best to use them to our benefit. I think that's all I have to say. But I'm struck by some of the comments today, and that I had to catch myself and ask if we were in a Fulton County Commission meeting or Atlanta City Council meeting, and not that they should be opposite or different, but I think there is a distinct approach that each side should have, given where we stand. So all that goes to say, I appreciate the opportunity to make a few remarks. Look forward to hearing a report back where further conversations lead us, and to conducting the business of the rest of the committee today. Thank you.
In other words, he's saying move on. Let me just say this, Mr. Hiroki. I hear you, and I agree. We're not going to resolve this today, but I think it's very clear that we need to make our positions known, and that's what I was trying to do today in terms of ACDC and in terms of that. Now, Mr. Bond and I may still have some difference of opinion in terms of this committee, because I'm not sure how we will work that out in terms of, I heard Mr. Rabat says X amount of people down at the room. So what I would suggest is to me, what is being asked in terms of this committee is almost like a different type. It's not a committee, a group. It's like having a little group get together to have a task force, which would be entirely different than the legislation that we actually did, because it talked about municipal judges and this and that and the other. So this is something where we're talking about possibly doing a whole other piece of legislation or resolution that says have a committee of a smaller group of people who will negotiate this, as opposed to having a special committee that's going to be looking at all this together, have a special group of people to negotiate that. And I think that's something we can maybe talk about. And it would be great that we didn't even have to talk about this, though, if we could just get to a conclusion based on Mr. Rabat and the mayor's office and folks meeting. So that's where I am. So, Mr. King, if by chance that you get the mayor to ask if she would come and speak to us.
Chair Shepard, I have not been able to get that confirmed, and I would just ask that you give me the opportunity to work to get a meeting set up between the mayor and the sheriff, and I'll commit to working on that after this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. King. All right. Is there anything else?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Mr. Bond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. King, and definitely thank you, Sheriff Labatt, for availing yourself and making yourself available to us today. I think this has been very helpful to the public in clearing the air of what might have been, as we began this meeting, or began this conversation in this meeting, some confusion or some cloudiness in the air as to what the real state of affairs is. And thank you for being willing to participate in our committee. And I would encourage the members of council who want to participate on to make themselves known. And that is what I'm doing at this time. When we make our selections, I presume it will be at Monday at full council. I'm putting myself out there as being one of the ones who want to participate in this group. But if Sheriff Labatt, if you and Mayor Bottoms can get together and work it out before Monday, all the better. All the better. You know, I don't ever want to be in a position where I question the motives or intentions of colleagues about the statements they make and the positions that they have. But I will say this, that my experiences are formed, and my opinions are hardened by the experiences that I've had. And part of the experiences that I've had in watching governments work go all the way back to the great Maynard Jackson and the great Michael Lomax. Maynard Jackson was mayor of Atlanta. Michael Lomax was the chairman of the Fulton County Board of Commissioners around criminal justice and many other areas, the arts, our parks, our public safety issues, were able to get their independent governments to work together. And so having seen that happen with intention and usually with some expedition, some expediency that forms the opinions that I have today of what has transpired around this issue of criminal justice. Having seen governments work swiftly together with intention, realizing that they are representing the exact same constituency and doing so deliberately and with the joint best interest at hand. That's what forms my opinions today. And that's what fuels my passion, because I've seen it happen. I've seen the city of Atlanta and Fulton County work together for the benefit of its joint citizenry without delay and obfuscation. And so that, having said that, I know that it can be done. And it is super encouraging to hear the sheriff speak of how quickly he's willing to come to the table and to help to resolve these issues. And I'm sure our fellow Astro, the mayor, at least I'll venture some more confidence again. I'll wager some more confidence again that she'll be just as deliberate and swift to help the least of these who are suffering, who are also our constituents that just happen to be held in the Fulton County Jail. It's a human issue. It's not just an issue of our assets or policy, though that is, of course, a tremendous part of it. But we should never lose the humanity of what we're doing or who we're obligated to, or even question why people might disagree with you, particularly when you're obviously right. So with that, I'll withdraw. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I have one other question. I just want to hear from my other colleagues in terms of the difference of opinion that Mr. Bond and I have in terms of this commission and this committee, because I'm just trying to understand how we would even do this committee. I'm trying to get a list of the joint committees now together in terms of that, Mr. Bond. It has the mayor appointee, council president, public safety committee chair, member of the city council, Fulton County Superior Court, judge of Atlanta Municipal Court, judge of Atlanta, chief judge of the Atlanta Municipal Court, then judge from Atlanta Municipal Court, Fulton County Commission, 3 members from the Fulton County Commission, and 1 member from Fulton County Sheriff or designee. So for me, that's a lot of people. And again, to me, in terms of where we are now, again, the commission saying that they are not necessarily wanting to do that. So I just want to hear from all the colleagues as to what y'all opinion is with that.
Madam Chair, this is Councilmember Winslow. So, you know, Councilmember Bond is partially correct. When this was negotiated previously in 2000, I don't know, it might have been 6 or 5, I can't remember the year that we actually went over to Fulton County, but it wasn't just the mayor going over, it was council members going over. So I went over along with the mayor, then Shirley Franklin, Councilmember Martin was there, and Claire Muller was there as well. And so so there is a precedent that has really been set previously in terms of negotiating with the two bodies, with the executive branch and with the legislative branch, and those two branches going over to Fulton County and sitting down and trying to hammer something out. So that's been done before. Now, in terms of the other ancillary, I shouldn't say ancillary, but the third leg to the stool is the judicial system, and I'm imagining that Councilmember Bond wanted to have them there because they're going to be the ones that are implementing whatever sentences there are, and they will be the ones that will be remanding people to treatment facilities or whatever in regard to that. I'm just hoping that at some point in time we could move on. While the problem of Fulton County may not be our problem per se under government rules, it is still our problem because Fulton County has been very clear, with police bringing people over there who are nonviolent offenders. They're not taking them, or if they take them, they're only there for a few hours. And so these are people that are right back out on the street doing devilment, breaking into our cars, breaking into our houses, and doing other nefarious things that jumping in our cars, taking our cars. So these are all considered nonviolent offenses, but they violate people's persons. Okay, people feel violated. And so at some point in time, we're going to have to move on to Mr. Bond's paper. We're going to have to. And we know the integrity of the sheriff. He worked for us. He was great. He was exemplary. Exemplary. That's why, Madam Chair, we're out here running after trash and picking it up every week. Because I tell you, Mr. Sheriff, Mr. High Sheriff, I miss you. When you talked about you picked up 2 tons in the city of Atlanta, I wasn't sure I was quite believing that of trash. I believe it now. Because I got people out here who I'm hiring to pick it up. And it's a hot mess. And people are blaming us for it. And you kept us out of the fire. Thank you, Mr. High Sheriff. You kept us out of the fire for several years. Okay? Because you were doing a job that Public Works was supposed to be doing. Thank you, Mr. High Sheriff. We appreciate you. Thank you, Mr. High Sheriff, for getting people's lives straightened out and putting them back to work. And I want to thank the administration for hiring some of those folks, because they hired them. You brought them over to city council and you said, hey, look, we got this program. We're doing some good things. We're doing wellness reform. I heard that someplace. Where did I hear that from? From the administration. Wellness. We're doing wellness. We're turning people's lives around. That's what the high sheriff was doing when he was at a correction. He was doing some of the minute things that the mayor's office is talking about now. They were in jail, sure, but then they got out of jail. Reformation. Reformation in the jail. Beautiful thing. Beautiful thing that you did, Mr. High Sheriff. Thank you. So at some point, if this doesn't resolve itself, we're just going to have to go to Councilmember Bond. That's not a slap in the face to the administration, but we have got to do something to give relief. The people in this town, the people that are doing the crimes, they listen to our program. You don't think they just out there robbing people and not listening to what we're saying. They're listening to the fact that we're not putting anybody in our jails. So they're having a good old time out there. They're laughing at us. That's not good. That's not good. We're not in a good place right now. We need to be in a place of equity, okay, of equalizing. And right now, they got us hands down. We got hands up because we're being robbed, and the people in this city are being robbed. And all people are saying is that we want responsible leadership. Let's give that to them. I may have a personal belief about a whole lot of things, okay? But that may not be where I'm supposed to be a leader. A leader has to move forward and lead. And so my personal preference, I have to put that aside, and I have to do what's good for the whole of Atlanta. But that's what we should be doing. What's good for the whole of Atlanta, not an eighth of Atlanta, but for the whole. So I'm thinking we're going to have to get to Mr. Bond's legislation at some point in time. I'm happy to give the mayor another shot at it. Fine. But there were two sides negotiating back in the mid-2000s, and that was the executive branch, and that was the legislative branch, and that was the city council members. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, guys, I'm going to withdraw my question, so we're going to move on because I don't think we're going to resolve this today. And I don't want, it's almost 5 o'clock, so I'm going to withdraw my question. We'll just figure out where it is, and on Monday, if that's what Mr. Bond wants to go forward with, we'll move forward to that. So with that, let us move on.
Hello?
Hello? Who said hello before you, Mr. Bond?
It sounded like an angel.
That was me. That was an accident. I apologize.
All right. Mr. Bond, and then we're going to move on.
I just want to make the point that, this is the policy of the city of Atlanta. We all voted for it. It was unanimous. We've already taken it. This is what the administration supported. This was unanimous. It passed the mayor's desk. So, we're not, and of course, to Ms. Winslow's point, we have the judiciary there because there are issues beyond the 500 beds. There are issues beyond the population at the Fulton County Jail that are within our criminal justice system that we need to talk about with Fulton County. There have been 2 blue ribbon commission studies about how we could best merge our criminal justice system with the counties from the early 2000s. And the sheriffs are familiar with them. And they've never been acted upon. That's it. You talk about our fiduciary responsibilities. That's an area in which we can save our taxpayers money. That's an area where we can combine services for the benefit of our constituencies. And so there does need to be a forum, a place where we have these discussions. And this committee can do so. And of course, we have every right to set up committees that involve the elected officials from Fulton County or officials from other governments or branches of government. This is completely legal and is completely appropriate. And I hope that we will just go ahead and just move on. And that the establishment of this does not prevent you know, Keisha Lance Bottoms and Patrick Labat from talking to each other at any time. It doesn't prevent that at all. As a matter of fact, if this were the old days, you know, with Mayor Franklin or, hell, even Mayor Reed, Mayor Jackson, and Mayor Campbell, Mayor Young, and Michael Lomax, and, you know, even Mitch Scandalaka, they would just pick up the phone and they would resolve this issue and bring the resolution and bring the resolved situation back to us to ratify. They wouldn't do it. But they wouldn't need a form to do it because they pick up the phone and do it. And I'm hoping that will happen. But we still need to act to have these conversations for the benefit of our taxpayers. And that's my only point. And of course, again, I'll remind everybody, this was unanimous and approved by the law department and all yada, yada, yada. So there's no question there. I withdraw.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. We'll move on now. We're going to move on to up under our consent agenda. We have resolutions claimed with favorable and unfavorable recommendations. We're going to take in the ones the favorable claims now. That's item 1 through 2. Is there a motion? I'll make a motion to actually approve those favorable 1 through 2.
Second.
That's in a second. Okay, go ahead with the vote, Ms. Lindo.
One moment, Madam Chair. The vote is open. Everyone, please vote. Ms. Winslow?
In favor. Thank you.
Boone, yes.
Phyllis, yes.
So it's closed, 78 nays. Those items are favorable.
Thank you, Ms. Lindo. We'll now go with claims of unfavorable recommendations. Those are items 3 through 31. I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Bond. We're ready for the vote, Ms. Lindo.
The vote is open, Madam Chair.
Ms. Winslow, how do you vote?
In favor.
Ms. Boone, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Hillis?
Yes.
Thank you.
The vote is closed, Madam Chair. Those items have been adversed. Madam Chair?
I'm sorry. I was talking and I didn't realize I was muted. I see 4 yeses. I didn't see 7 yes.
Yeah, there's 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay.
Populated slowly, yes.
Okay, thank you. We're now up on our regular agenda ordinance for second reading. Could you sound item number 1, Ms. Lindo?
Yes, Madam Chair. That's 21-00407. This is an ordinance by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee authorizing the mayor or designee to amend the lease agreement with the Retail Property Trust, a Massachusetts business trust, for approximately 1,797 square feet of office space located at 393 Peachtree Road, Suite 2016B, Lenox Mall, Atlanta, Georgia, for the Department of Police Zone 2 mini precinct for a 3-year term commencing retroactively on January 1st, 2021 and ending on December 31st, 2023, authorizing a lease rate not to exceed $1 per year, waiving Article 10, Section 2-1546 of the Procurement Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances, and authorizing the expenditure to be charged to and paid from accounts listed herein and for other purposes.
Thank you. Are there any questions in reference to this legislation? Is there a motion?
There.
I'm sorry?
Madam Chair, I do have a question. So this is for the zone precinct lease?
Yes, in Lenox Mall, Zone 2, Lenox Mall mini precinct.
I move approval.
All right, the motion is to approve by Mr. Bond. Is there a second?
Second, Hillis.
Then a motion and a second by Bond and Hiller. We're ready for the vote, Ms. Lindo.
The vote is open, Madam Chair.
Ms. Winslow, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you. Ms. Boone, do you need to vote by voice?
Yes, I do, Madam Chair. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Hiller?
Madam Chair, the vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable. Madam Chair, we will need to take a vote to send this item to FEC for the waiving of the procurement code.
So move.
There's a motion by Mr. Bond to send this to FEC. Is there a second? I'll second it. Shepard. We're ready for the vote.
The vote is open.
Ms. Winslow, how do you vote? Ms. Winslow, how do you vote? Ms. Boone, how do you vote?
Yes, Madam Chair. Yes.
All right. Ms. Winslow,
Madam Chair.
Okay. Is that 6 or 7? 6 8.
6 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay. We're now moving to resolution. Item number 2. Can you sound that, Ms. Lindo?
Yes, madam. Just to confirm that item will be referred to, the previous item will be referred to the FEC. This is Resolution 21R3617. This is a resolution by Council Members Dustin Hillis and Andre Dickens to rescind Resolution number 21R3383 to authorize the payment in the amount of $12,000 to Joshua Schiffer, successor in interest to Maggie Schiffer, in settlement of all claims against the City of Atlanta related to a sewer incident alleged to have occurred on October 16, 2019, and for other purposes.
Are there questions or is there a motion?
Move approval, Smith.
Second.
Second. Okay. I think Mr. Bond got it. Thank you, Mr. Bond. We're ready for the vote, Ms. Lindo.
The vote is open, Madam Chair. Will everyone please vote?
Ms. Winslow, how do you vote?
In favor.
Ms. Boone, how do you vote?
Madam Chair, I'm back online. Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
okay,
I'm back
thank you.
That vote is
now. Thank you.
That vote is closed, Madam Chair. That's 7 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable.
Thank you. We'll now move to item number 3, Ms. Lindo.
Yes, that's Resolution 21R3653. That's a resolution by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee to rescind Resolution number 21R3464 and authorizing payment in the amount of $1,060.20 in a settlement of property damage claim of Laverne Ballard against the City of Atlanta and for other purposes.
Move approval.
Okay, thank you. There's a motion to approve. Second by Mr. Bond. Motion by Ms. Smith. We're ready for the vote, Ms. Lindo.
The vote is open, Madam Chair.
Ms. Winslow, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you.
The vote is closed. That's 7 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable.
Thank you. We'll now move to item number 4, Ms. Lindo.
Madam Chair, if I may take items 4 and 5 together. They're both donations from the Atlanta Police Foundation.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Resolution 21R3654. That's a resolution by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee authorizing the mayor or designee to accept on behalf of the Atlanta Police Foundation a donation from the Atlanta Police Foundation of 10 2021 Ford Explorers valued at approximately $579,929.60 for use as additional police department vehicles in order to augment the police presence throughout the city of Atlanta and for other purposes. Item number 5, 21R 3655. It's a resolution by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee authorizing the mayor or designee to accept on behalf of the Atlanta Police Foundation a donation of a 2020 Ford Transit van valued at approximately $38,250.00 for use as an additional Atlanta Police Department vehicle within the Police Athletic League and for other purposes.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second on both of those items. We're ready for the vote, Ms. Lindo.
Vote is open, Madam Chair.
Ms. Winslow, how do you vote? In favor. Thank you.
The vote's closed. That's 7 yeas, 0 nays. Those items are favorable.
Thank you, Ms. Lindo. I believe we're now in held papers, and we don't have anything. The other two held papers we had come off earlier in the meeting, and we don't have anything else coming off of held. Correct, Ms. Lindo?
Not that I'm aware of, Madam Chair.
All right. So we're at the end of our meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Absolutely. Smith, motion to adjourn.
Second, Shepard. All in favor, please vote with your hands or your feet.
Hanging up. Bye.
Bye. Thank you all so much. All right. Have a good one.